public and the people that are affected by these laws. At this point, without further ado, I'd like to ask the representative of the Director General, Dr. Engineer Joseph Okech, to come forth and deliver his message, and then thereafter we'll progress into the technical bit of today's activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Immaculate, and good morning, everyone. Good morning once again. We were expecting our Director General to join us, but he is held in a meeting, although he gave me a message to pass. But should he come, maybe later on, he'll also have a chance to talk to you. May I take this opportunity to thank all of you once again for coming to be with us in this very important engagement on behalf of the Director General of EPRA and all of us, the EPRA fraternity who are here. We appreciate you. Thank you. Allow me to read verbatim the message from our Director General, because when he comes, maybe he'll just give you an off-the-cuff greetings and maybe another message. So, to the industry stakeholders present, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning once again. Good morning. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to today's workshop. We are here to discuss critical draft regulations, which upon gazettement will apply to the generation, importation, exportation, transmission, distribution, and retail supply of electrical energy in the country. These regulations will shape the future of our electricity sector and enhance its efficiency, reliability, and safety. Ladies and gentlemen, as the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, part of our mandate is to develop regulatory frameworks that enhance the efficiency and reliability of energy services while promoting safety and consumer protection. As such, the authority has developed the following draft regulations, which will be subject to our discussion today. The first regulation we'll be talking about, ladies and gentlemen, today will be the draft Energy, Electricity Reliability, Quality of Supply, and Quality of Service Regulations. These drafts are of 2025. The next one will be the Draft Energy System Operations Regulations of 2025. And then the last one we'll be discussing today will be the Draft Electricity Incident and Accident Reporting Regulations of 2025. Article 33 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 underscores the fundamental right to freedom of expression, which includes the right to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas. Today's exercise is in line with the Statutory Instruments Act, the revised one of 2023, which mandates statutory instruments making institutions like EPRA to conduct public consultations aimed to make the regulatory process more transparent and accountable. And in this spirit, EPRA is committed to an open and inclusive consultative process today. Your voices matter, and that's why we appreciate you for being here. And your input will be instrumental in refining the draft regulations to ensure they are comprehensive, practical, beneficial to all stakeholders, and meet your specific needs. Ladies and gentlemen, I will start with the draft Energy, Electricity, Incident and Accident Reporting Regulations 2025, which seeks to establish a structured framework for incidents and accident reporting. The regulations, once effected, will define clear guidelines, setting timelines for notification and submission of reports, where when accidents and incidents occur, where we work or where we live, or just in the general areas of our environment. The draft regulations further require licensees to prepare for an incident by taking up insurance cover, which will cover the liability claims should they arise. This provision will ensure timely intervention for those affected by the accidents and the incidences. To maintain a true and updated record of accidents and incidences in the country, licensees will further be required to report any accidents or incidences that causes loss of life, personal injury, damage to the environment, or damage to property within 48 hours. These mandatory reporting timelines aims to ensure swift interventions the facilitation of corrective measures and strengthening the sector's overall safety framework. To facilitate this, EPRA will establish an online reporting system and provide a 24-hour accident reporting hotline. Those are already there, and we'll share with you them today. We'll share them with you today. This will enable licensees through their designated responsible persons, as well as members of the public, to promptly report accidents and incidences in accordance with the established framework. By leveraging technology and real-time communication channels, EPRA aims to streamline the reporting process, improve response times, and mitigate potential risk effectively. Additionally, in the event of an accident or an incident, the responsible person must constitute a competent investigation team to conduct a thorough investigation of the occurrence and submit a detailed report outlining the findings, causes, and recommended preventive actions to ensure that actions are taken to EPRA within 30 days. The investigation process ensures that lessons are learned, necessary corrective actions taken, and future incidences minimized. Ladies and gentlemen, the second regulations we'll discuss today is the Energy, Electricity, Quality, Reliability, Quality of Supply, and Quality of Service Regulation of 2025. These are designed to enhance the efficiency, accountability, and reliability of electricity services across Kenya. They apply to all of the supply chain of generation, importation, until you reach the supply end, the last mile. And they cover both the grid-connected and off-grid systems. That means customers who are in the off-grid as well. A key highlight of this regulation is the emphasis on improving supply efficiency by holding licensees accountable for their service delivery. Licensees must provide consumers with quality services as per their contractual agreements. In instances where these service standards are not met, the regulations establish clear provisions for penalties and compensation to affected consumers, ensuring adherence to the stipulated reliability, quality of service, and quality of service benchmarks. To strengthen consumer protection, retailers will be required to submit both monthly and annual reports to the authority, that's to EPRA. These reports will detail the reliability and quality of supply and service, as well as the overall performance of their systems. The submitted data will serve as a basis for regulatory assessment, compliance verification, and the identification of areas needing improvement, ultimately ensuring that consumers receive efficient and reliable electrical services. To promote accountability and efficiency in the electricity supply restoration, the regulation introduces clear timelines for restoring services, ensuring that consumers experience minimal disruptions and receive quality of service at all times. First, if a service disconnection occurs because a consumer has violated the regulations, that means maybe for non-payment, their supply will be restored within 24 hours once they prove compliance. In case of planned outages, supply must be reinstated within 12 hours from the time of interruption, and when supply is interrupted due to technical defects, licensees must restore services within 24 hours after the issue has been resolved, and the confirmatory tests have been completed. For unplanned outages caused by minor faults in urban areas, restoration will be within 12 hours, while in rural areas, it will be within 24 hours. Failure to meet the stipulated standards will result in enforcement actions, which may include penalties, remedial measures, or license reviews. Ladies and gentlemen, as we work towards strengthening our national power infrastructure, I'm pleased to also highlight the draft Energy System Operation Regulations 2025, which aims to ensure safe, reliable, and well-coordinated operations of the national transmission system and the interconnected transmission system, which we call the grid. A key aspect of this regulation is the development and continuous review of the grid code. Grid code, these are the standards where all the generators, those people are connected to the grid, like the transmission companies and the distribution companies must adhere to. A critical framework that guides the management of our transmission and distribution networks. The authority, in collaboration with all licensees and stakeholders in the national power system, will oversee this process to ensure that all players adhere to the highest standards of consistency, safety, and efficiency in their operations. The regulations also require EPRA to ensure transparency and accessibility by making the latest version of the grid code readily available to the public through our website. They are already available, the grid code, in 2 versions. One is for the Kenya National Generation and Transmission Grid Code, and one is for the Kenya National Distribution Grid Code. They are available on our website even today as we talk. This commitment to open, this commitment to open access and shareholder involvement, stakeholder involvement, will also enhance compliance, but also encourage trust and collaboration in the sector. As I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I sincerely thank each one of you for dedicating your time to participate in this workshop. I encourage you to view this regulation not just as policies, but as vital frameworks that will drive the transformation and sustainability of our electricity market. We look forward to receiving your comments, which will help us make the drafts better. I would also like to ask you to partner with us to make these regulations known to the people around you. We can all play a part in achieving an informed energy sector. On our part, as the regulator, we will continue to work together to develop policies that drive innovation, protect consumers, and promote Kenya's energy security. With these remarks, I wish you a fruitful day. Thank you, asanteni sana. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said earlier, that's the message from our Director General. We expected him to come, but I know he's early in a meeting. Should he come anytime, then we'll give him a chance just to greet us and also to share with us his views. But once again, as the Director in charge of electricity and renewable energy, I must say that we are delighted that we are here, and the regulations we are discussing today are very key to us. When you talk about incidences and accidents, they affect us. When you talk about incidences, maybe that's where we have got power outages or blackouts, and sometimes, you know, they can really inconvenience us. Then accidents is where maybe where we live or where we work. There could be cases where there are injuries caused by electricity. So the regulations are aimed at making sure that we streamline, that when the incidents and accidents occur, there's some kind of a very regulated framework, how we deal with them, mostly how we investigate them, but mostly how do we now reduce the cases of accident and incidents in our country and in our places of work and maybe where we stay. The one we have talked again is reliability. I know even you people, when you come also, it talks about also the power outages and maybe how many times should we have blackouts in the country? How many times should we maybe have Kenya Power putting us off for maintenance? And this also to streamline the sector. And we have come up with some strict timelines which we want to adhere to. We have benchmarked with other jurisdictions as well. The last one is about system operations, and that's also very key. How power is coordinated from the generators until it reaches us, like now where we are here seamlessly, and we don't know where the power is coming from, whether it's from the Seven Forks, whether it's from the Olkaria, where geothermal, or the wind, but it must be in a way that's coordinated. And that's why we are here today, because I know these regulations affect all of us, and I would like to request all of us also to pay attention to our technical officers who will be taking us through, and mostly note down your issues or maybe comments or areas of improvement you feel we should do in each of the regulations and share them with us. We will have a time where we'll discuss them, but we may not be exhaust all the discussions. So even later on, we'll have until 30th of March. We'll give you an online portal where you can go there, get a comment form, still give us your suggestions. With those, may I thank you all once again. May God bless us as we listen. And I think I'll call now Immaculate to bring our presenters. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Let's appreciate him with a Better clap. Asante. Thank you. We'll now get into the technical presentations, and I'd like to ask Dennis Kirui. I don't know whether he's with us. Dennis Kirui is not with us. Engineer Rono, yes, I'd like to ask Engineer Rono to come forth and present the regulation on reliability and quality of supply, while at the same time take us through the regulation making process so that we understand what it takes to have these regulations come all the way to being laws. Engineer Rono. Thank you.
Bring it there. Okay.
The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy
MC, Immaculate. My name once again is Engineer Jonathan Rono, working for EPRA in the Electricity Directorate, is my director. And good morning, everyone. I'll be presenting on regulations making process. And then my colleague, Engineer Simi, will come and present the regulation on reliability, quality of supply, and quality of service. So mine is a brief presentation. It's just 3 slides, 5 to 10 minutes, then my colleague will come in. So I have to see it the other side, on my laptop like this. From there. There's a microphone there. I need to see that. Or just like this. Do you want to use this? Yes. So I'll be presenting on the overview of regulation making process. My presentation outline is as indicated there. Bullet 1 is what are regulations. And number 2 is the powers that EPRA, or the Cabinet Secretary responsible for energy and petroleum, has when it comes to making regulations. And then number 3 is, I'll go through now the process of making regulations. And then followed by what we call regulatory impact assessment, what is that? And then finally, the contents of regulatory impact statement. So what are regulations? I can see. Let me come down here. So what are regulations? So I'll begin by looking at the hierarchy of laws in Kenya. So we have, I believe all of us, we know the Constitution of Kenya, which was enacted in 2010. That is the supreme law of the land. Any other law that is not consistent with the Constitution is null and void. So all laws must align with the Constitution. And then under the Constitution, we have laws made by Parliament. We call them statutes. And for EPRA, we are governed by 2 laws made by Parliament. That is the Energy Act of 2019 and the Petroleum Act. But today we'll be focusing on the Energy Act, which houses the 3 regulations that we'll be presenting before you here. So under an Act of Parliament, they are what we call subsidiary legislations. These are laws made by other bodies other than Parliament. Parliament can delegate the powers to make laws. It can be made by the minister or a regulator like ourselves or any other body. But then it has to be eventually approved by Parliament. So that is what we call subsidiary legislations. In bracket, I've put regulations. So what we have before you here, those are regulations. They are subsidiary legislation under the Energy Act. That is talking about what regulations are. So let me go through bullet 3. We have an Act of Parliament called Statutory Instrument Act of 2013. It has been amended twice in 2018 and 2024. But the main substance of the law is still intact. It's just a bit minor amendments. So the Statutory Instrument Act defines a statutory instrument as any rule, order, regulation. I've underlined regulation because we are dealing with regulation today. And it gives more details there. That is definition as by the Statutory Instrument Act. So our regulations are statutory instrument or subsidiary legislations. So I mentioned the 3 regulations under consideration today are among a number of regulations under the Energy Act. We have a number of regulations, but today we are presenting 3. Energy Act has over 20 regulations under it. Regulation, they do what? They clarify some things in the Act. For example, the Act says this should be done. How to do it is stipulated in the regulations. So we have a number of regulations under the Energy Act. The powers to make regulations. Constitution, Article 94(5) of the Constitution says it's only Parliament that has the mandate or the powers to make laws, but they can delegate through an Act of Parliament. That's why I've underlined, bold, there is legislation is in bold. So in the Energy Act, there are some provisions that says the minister should make regulations. So these 3 regulations we are presenting today are in the Energy Act. The Act has said the minister should make regulations in consultation with us. It's actually the regulator that recommends to the minister for enactment. And then Article 94(6) of the Constitution is talking about now the delegation of that powers by Parliament to other bodies. And then when we look at the Energy Act, subsection 167L is this one, 167L, is speaking to prescribing standard relating to reliability. That is where we have that regulation on reliability. 138.3 is speaking to this one, system operations. And then 167F of the Energy Act is about the accidents and incidents. So if you go through the Energy Act, you'll be able to see where the Act says the minister or the authority should make regulation to operationalize those provisions of the Act. And then Section 208 of the Energy Act is generally giving powers to the minister to make regulations, generally. Now, let's go. Now that we've understood what regulations are, let's see how they are enacted. We know for the laws of Parliament, there is a process in the standing orders, how to make laws. Now for regulation, it is stipulated in the Statutory Instrument Act, and this is the process. So the first step is to identify the needs for regulation. Do we need regulations? So you get to know the needs. So for our case here, it is in the Energy Act. The Act says those regulations should be made by the regulator or the minister responsible for energy and petroleum. So first step is need identification, and then initiate, originate what we call the first draft regulations. So in our case, we developed the regulation in consultation with a number of entities in the sector and other stakeholders. So look at this responsible entity. We have EPRA was the one spearheading, supported by other sector entities. We had Kenya Power, we had KenGen, we had independent bar producers, professional bodies, among others. So that was the first draft. That first draft, when we're going to go to step 2, has to be taken through what we call regulatory impact assessment. The impact that this regulation will have on the economy, environmental aspects, social aspects, among other things. That's what we call regulatory impact assessment. It is stipulated in the Statutory Instrument Act that must be done for any regulation that you are developing. So that is step 2. Step 3 is publish the second draft together with regulatory impact statement for public comments. So that one we've done as the regulator. Under step 2, we conducted RIA, gathered information from stakeholders and incorporated in the first draft, resulting in the second draft. So this is the one we published under 3. 4 is what we are doing now. We are here today to go through what we call public participation exercise. And that the EPRA is responsible. And then after this, the authority, that is EPRA, will retreat to now incorporate the comments obtained from this forum. Step 6 is after now incorporating the comments, the internal approvals within EPRA to approve the second draft and prepare a document called explanatory memorandum. It is talking about what the regulation is all about, whether we conducted regulatory impact assessment, all those. So that is under explanatory memorandum. And then all those, all of them are forwarded to the minister for further processing. That is under step 7. Step 8 is minister forwarding the same regulation. No, that is 7. 7 is after 6. We have 7, where the minister forwards the regulation together with those other documents to the HE's office, Attorney General's office, for review and legal drafting. Now here we are engineers, we are financial people, among others economists, so the regulation has engineering terminologies, which has to be converted to a legal language. And that can be done by the Attorney General. That is why it's going to the HE's office. Then after the HE's office, it goes to Parliament. We said Parliament has the mandate to make laws. So eventually regulation, they have to go to Parliament for that ratification. So basically that is the process. The last step is publication of the regulation. Once they are published or published by the minister, they come into force. So that is step 9. So I believe we've understood the process of making regulations. So, tumeelewa, isn't it? Okay. Then what is regulatory impact statement? I think that one I spoke to. It is a systematic way of examining potential impact of the regulations. You look at economic aspects, you look at social aspects, environmental impact, and also any compliance costs associated with the regulations. So all those are analyzed and put in one document called regulatory impact statement. And then the last bullet is saying, according to section 6 and 7 of Statutory Instrument Act of 2013, which has been amended, it was amended in 2018 and 2024, it says if a proposed statutory instrument is expected to impose significant cost on the community or any part of it, the regulation making authority, here we have IPRA here and the minister, must prepare what you call regulatory impact statement before making the instrument. And what are the contents of the regulatory impact statement is in the next slide. So contents of regulatory impact statement, it sets out certain key elements that must be contained in the RIS, namely a statement of objective of the proposed regulation and reasons for them. Number 2 is a statement explaining the effect of the proposed regulations. And then 3 is a statement of other practicable means of achieving those objectives, including other regulatory as well as non-regulatory options. You look at other options. Do we need the regulations? Are there alternatives? Can we implement the act without regulations? So you look at various options. And then number 4 is an assessment of cost and benefits of the proposed regulations and of any other practicable means of achieving the same objective. And lastly, the reasons why the other means are not appropriate. So that is what you call regulatory impact statement. So for every regulation, you prepare that. So that we've done. EBRA has done that. We have the draft regulation. So once we are done with all those, we shall forward the final draft regulation together with RIS and explanatory memorandum to the minister for further processing. So in brief, that is the process of enacting regulations. Thank you very much. Madam Immaculate, I think Simiyu can come in now. Engineer.
Yeah, I think we cue in Simiyu so that we can proceed. Simiyu.
Good morning once again. If you have forgotten my name, then it means your memory is poor. Okay, naitwa Tom. Of the regulations, we didn't expect that you will come here so that we take you through the details of the regulation, but just the highlights, because we did communicate that we have those regulations on our website. So it is our anticipation that you have read those regulations and you have come here with either questions or comments, additions to help us enrich our regulation. So I'll basically be doing just the highlights. The questions you might have, the comments, we'll have a session where we will be able to react to them. But of more importance is that all the comments that will be deemed valuable will be onboarded by EPRA into the regulation. So I want to start by doing a highlight on the presentation. So this presentation highlights the regulatory impact assessment and also the overview of the regulation. The regulatory impact statement for the draft regulation, we already have it on our website, plus also the regulation, which we hope you have read. But if not, as our director said, you have until end of this month to give us your submission so that we can be able to finalize on the regulations and take it to the next approval steps and processes. So now, regulatory impact assessment study is that EPRA commissioned a consultant to carry out a regulatory impact assessment to identify potential economic, environmental, and social impacts of these draft regulations on electricity reliability and quality of supply. And the consultant was able to review publications and academic literature on electricity reliability and quality of supply, and also quality of service. He did benchmarking and comparative analysis. And among the jurisdictions he was able to do benchmarking was Uganda, Ghana, India, Rwanda, UK, and Chile. And the key stakeholders that were involved in this process were our licensees in the generation segment, transmission, licensees, distribution, and retail supply licensees, and also captive power generators and mini grid operators, as well as consumers and professional organizations. And the feedback we got from the key stakeholders were incorporated in the current draft of regulation. So I now just proceed to do an overview. As I mentioned, we expect you to have read, or you still have a few days to read and give us your views and comments. And this regulation, as I already mentioned, is on our website. You can find it there. Just a few of the key terminologies we have used in this regulation, because we have talked about reliability, and also quality, both of supply and service. So when you talk about reliability of electricity, is simply that electricity being available when you need it. When you wake up in the morning, ukienda kwa shower, unapata kwamba you are getting hot shower, sio cold shower. When you are switching on your light, your switch, your light comes on. So when you need it, it is when you need that product called electricity and it is available, then we say it is reliable. When you talk about quality, it means it falls within the highest quality parameters. And the parameters for electricity are voltage, frequency, harmonic, distortion, and also voltage flickers. When you talk about quality of service, you know, electricity is the good, but the service is something you cannot touch, but you can feel it. So service, basically, when you are going, let's say, to KPLC, you want to complain, you want to get connected. So when they connect you within the scheduled or prescribed time frame, then we say you're getting quality service. So service has got to do with not the product, but how you are being treated. The service, you are bringing your complaint, they are taking your complaint, they are writing down, they are promising you they are going to resolve within the prescribed timeline. You are complaining about your meter, which is maybe malfunctioning and so forth, and you get attended to, so we say you're getting quality service. Then also grid code. We have got a document we call grid code. And in Kenya, we have got two documents, one covering the transmission and another one covering distribution. So we have got transmission grid code and also distribution grid code. And these are basically rules and standards governing planning, connection, and operation of the electricity grid. Licensees are all the players we have given instruments to allow them to do electricity business, be it generation, transmission, distribution, supply, and retail. The objective and purpose of this regulation is to promote provision of reliable and quality supply of electricity and quality service offered by our licensees. And the specific objectives are, or they include, to provide for performance standards relating to the supply of electricity, provide for performance standards relating to the quality of supply, provide for guidelines on the nature and format of data information and statistics to be provided to the authority and also to the system operator, and also provide for procedure for monitoring the quality of supply and also quality of service provided by electricity service providers. And also, this regulation provides for penalties for those licensees who do not meet the prescribed quality of supply and also quality of service. So I go to the arrangement of the regulations. Part 1 is preliminaries. Part 2 is reliability and quality of supply, performance standards or indicators. Part 3, quality of service standards and distribution, or for distribution stroke retail licenses. Part 4, quality of service standards for system operator and generation and distribution licenses. Part 5 is data and reporting requirements. Part 6 is compliance. Then part 7 is transition. Then we have the schedules. So regulation 1 is on citation, and we are saying these regulations may be cited as the energy, that is electricity reliability, quality of supply and service regulations 2024. We have given interpretation for the various terminologies we have used in regulation 2 on the part of interpretation. The purpose of this regulation, which I've already mentioned, is to promote the provision of reliable and quality supply of electricity and quality services offered by our licensees. And these regulations are applicable to importation, exportation, generation, distribution, retail supply of electrical energy, including grid and off-grid systems. Regulation 5, guaranteed performance standards. So regulation 5 provides for guaranteed performance standards for licensees and the system operator. And these performance standards are set out in the distribution grid code. And the authority is also allowed to set those performance indicators. After all, the grid code is also made by the regulator. We have also provided that licensees or the system operator may be exempted from meeting those guaranteed performance standards if the cause of the poor performance is due to third-party interference. For example, if it is Kenya Power, if a lorry has hit a pole and it is fallen down and there is an outage, you can't blame Kenya Power. It is outside their control. So those are things we are saying third party. Or force majeure, if we have a storm, na imeaprut line ya stima, huwezi kublame Kenya Power. Na huwezi kublame Mungu. Labda utablame shetani. Utaleta maoni yako kwa session. Tutakuwa na session. Just write your comments. You'll bring those. We will have a session for bringing those comments. We encourage them. Just note them down. So, in essence, there are occurrences that are outside the control of the licensee. So, hizo ndio tunasema they will be exempt from them being penalized. But those that are within their control and they do not provide a service and also supply that is not within the guaranteed performance standards, they will be penalized. Regulation 6 on customer service charter and supply contract. So the regulation provides that the licensee shall develop and submit a customer service charter to the authority and also the supply contract for review and approval every 3 years. And this approved service charter shall be published by the licensee and also displayed in areas that is accessible by customers. Kama ni Kenya Power, we expect them to display the customer service charter in places like banking halls, in places like when you are going to the offices, maybe the reception, so that it is accessible. But it's also expected that they'll be able to put it on their website, because this customer service charter is enlightening the customer on their rights. On their rights as customers. Regulation 7 is talking about interruption. And here we are giving provision that the electricity supplier, not necessarily Kenya Power, because the law now has allowed other players in the distribution, supply, and also retail. So anyone who will be supplying and retailing electricity, we propose that they will be allowed to disconnect customers under some circumstances, one of which is if the installation is defective. Number 2, they can also be allowed to disconnect if you have not paid for the energy consumed or electricity, or if you have violated the supply contract. They are also allowed to disconnect you if they are doing maintenance, what we call planned maintenance. And usually, before planned maintenance is carried out, the supplier will be able to notify the consumer that they are going to disconnect supply to afford them the opportunity to work on the lines and other infrastructure. And it is stipulated that the distribution licensee shall notify the customer 48 hours before the scheduled maintenance, so that ikusaidie kujipanga. Kama umeweka una plani kununua nyama kilo 10 uweke kwa fridge, labda ununue kilo 2 ndio hiyo ingine isioze. Regulation 8 is talking about emergency disconnection, that we are also giving provision for the distributor to disconnect you without notice under certain circumstances, which we are calling emergency. And a circumstance can only qualify to emergency if there is danger to life, there is danger even to the collapse of the electricity grid. You know, it's better you be disconnected for half an hour, then you get electricity, than grid collapse, alafu ichukue 2 days to restore. So we providing circumstances under which a distributor can also be allowed to disconnect you without notice under emergency conditions. Regulation 9, reconnection of supply. If, for example, you defaulted on payment of your electricity bill, then the electricity distributor has switched you off. Once you pay, then they are allowed to reconnect you within 24 hours. But for those instances where they have disconnected you because of maintenance, they should reconnect you within 12 hours. Regulation 10 is talking about disputes on electricity bills. And we are saying that if there is a dispute, you need to resolve it amicably between the consumer and the licensee. But in case the dispute is not resolved, then it can be escalated to the authority for resolution within 60 days from the date the matter is referred to the authority. Regulation 11, provision of information to consumers by the licensee. So we are saying the distributor or the licensee is mandated to provide certain information to the consumer. Among them is that the licensee must be able to notify the consumer on where their current physical location is, or service centers. Kama kuna customer service center, kama kuna ofisi fulani mahali, kama kuna ofisi ya emergency, so you need to know where they are. And like for KPLC now, they have devolved to counties, so you need to know where their offices are, where you can call when you have an issue. So it is your right as a customer to be informed by the licensee where you can get their services. If there is any change in the tariff, then the consumer has a right to be informed by the licensee. Then you can also be informed about the method of reading your meter and so forth. Provide, which I have already mentioned, consumers with customer service charter. Regulation 12, handling of complaints by the distribution or retail supply licensee. And we have provided that every distribution licensee or retailer should have a complaints handling procedure which will be submitted to the authority for approval. And it is based on that procedure that if you have any complaint, then your complaint will be handled according to that procedure. And if at the end of that complaints handling procedure, your complaint is not handled to your satisfaction, then you can now refer it to the authority for further action. Regulation 13, quality of service standards for the system operator, and the system operator is supposed to develop and submit a service level agreement and dispatch and operation guidelines to the authority for review and approval, and that should be done 30 days at the start of the system operator's financial year. And the service level agreement shall include outage management, demand and generation forecasting, system availability, contingency management, among other requirements. Regulation 14, quality of service standards for generation and transmission licensees. So the generation and transmission licensee is required to conduct the undertaking in a manner that complies with the grid code. And the grid code has given details on what standards they need to meet in as far as their operations are concerned and the service they provide to consumers. And we also have got another instrument called the power purchase agreement. So they also need to abide by the conditions in the power purchase agreement and also the network service agreement or contract or any other applicable laws or standards. And we are saying the generation or transmission licensee shall submit a schedule of planned outages to the system operator, and this is provided in the grid code. They are also required to notify the authority of any unplanned interruption affecting major equipment or infrastructure. So if there is any unplanned interruption which has affected a large portion of the licensee's undertaking or affected a significant equipment, a sizable equipment, which of course also affect their ability to deliver services to a bigger number of customers, then the authority needs to be notified. Regulation 15 is a provision of information to the authority and the system operator. So the licensee is supposed to collect, analyze, maintain such data, information and statistics relating to the undertaking to enable them report to the authority on the reliability and quality of supply and service. We have provided for a schedule on what needs to be reported to the authority and the system operator in the third schedule. So the details are there. Regulation 16, reporting obligations. So the system operator shall consolidate planned outages of generators and transmission systems and report annually to the authority. The distribution and retail supply licensee shall report monthly and annually to the authority on reliability and the quality of supply and service. We have given a schedule on what needs to be reported and at what frequency. In Schedule 4, so we have detail on what reports are needed to be submitted to the authority and the system operator and at what frequency. For Regulation 17, it's talking about monitoring of compliance and data audit by the authority. And in this, we are providing that the data provided by the licensees to the authority is auditable. Kama kuna terminology kama hiyo. So we don't just take it at face value. We are also allowed to go and audit that data the licensee is submitting to EPRA. And there's a requirement that we need to notify the licensee at least 7 days before we go to audit their data. Regulation 19 is talking about offenses and penalties. And we have given a range of offenses and the proposed. These are proposed penalties. But unajua watu wa magazeti by kesho watasema EPRA is going to penalize people 100,000, this and that amount of money. These are just proposals. So we call stakeholders like you so that we can get your views on whether those penalties, fines we are proposing are commensurate with the offenses or whether we can make adjustments either upwards or downwards. So we request for your intelligence and for your comments and contribution on the same. Enforcement proceedings, where it is proved that the distribution or retail supply licensee is in violation of performance standards or their reporting obligations, then there are enforcement mechanisms, and one of which is to issue orders for them to comply or to rectify the violation, failure to which the authority may commence enforcement proceedings, which may include monetary sanctions, license, suspension, or revocation. And before we begin any enforcement proceedings, we'll give a notice of at least 30 days. Regulation 20 is talking about compensation by licensees, and we have given circumstances under which a licensee will be required to compensate either for destruction of property, injury, or loss of life, and also failure to provide electricity when it is required. If it is a planned outage and the time has gone beyond the restoration time, then there are penalties. If it is an unplanned outage, then there are penalties. But we have also provided circumstances under which those penalties will not apply, and which I gave an example. Kama lori imegonga pole na imekata stima, huwezi kusema Kenya Power wakulipe. It is not their fault. Labda in that case, wewe ndio utafuatilia watu wa lori wakulipe. Anyway, it's a joke. So in essence, we have tried to isolate those cases and circumstances under which the licensee will not be liable for compensation, because it is unfair. Kwamba outage imekuwa cost na a factor outside their control, then we force them to pay. That will be unfair. Another circumstance is, for example, if we have an illegal connection, mtu amekuja amehook kwa line yako na kumetokea na fault na kumetokea na outage. It is not fault ya KPLC. Ni huyo mtu alikuwa anajaribu kuiba stima ndio amesababisha wewe ukakosa stima. So those unique circumstances will be assessed and looked at on a case by case basis. Complaints and dispute, I think this I've already talked about, that the place to begin lodging your complaint is the licensee, not EPRA. Mukikosa kuelewana, or you are dissatisfied with the outcome of the resolution, then now you can bring it to EPRA. EPRA pia tutaiangalia, will make a verdict. If you are not satisfied with the verdict ya EPRA, you can go to the tribunal. So please mark the order of escalation. Usiende kotini ama uanzie tribunal. Unaanzia wapi? You know, the same way, if you quarrel with your wife, it is wise to begin resolving that case with your wife. Sio kuita mother-in-law. Okay. Kuna hii transition clause inasema this reliability performance, you know you have given provision that if they don't provide this quality of service, then they can be penalized. But pia tumepeana provision ya kwamba we need to give a grace period where we allow the licensees to actually improve their infrastructure and their systems to be able to meet your expectation. So that's why in the regulation tumesema the reliability performance indicator tolerance requirements that are violated in the grid code shall not be applicable in the first phase outlined in the distribution grid code. Na hii first phase tumesema, when does it begin? The first phase that is in the grid code, part 9 9.5.7.1 inasema hiyo ni phase 1. This phase 1 will be a period of 9 months from the date when the authority publishes the Kenya National Distribution Grid Code. Hatuja publish your grid code so far. So by the time we publish it, then the grace period will be 9 months. After 9 months, then we'll begin to enforce the requirements of the grid code and also this regulation, particularly as relates to the tolerance requirements, and which will lead to penalties if they are not met by the licensees. Okay, this regulation shall come into effect immediately upon gazettement by the Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum. The schedules, we have them there: supply contract, minimum requirements that needs to be reflected in the customer service charter, report to the authority and the system operator, compensation application process, compensation computation, compensation claim form, customer complaint form. And that brings us to the end of this presentation. Thank you so much. We'll have a session for questions. Karibu Immaculate. Simunipigie makofi.
Asante. Thank you, Tom, for that very elaborate and good presentation about the draft regulation on reliability and quality of supply. I believe we were listening and we have understood the object of this regulation. At this point, we will take a few rounds of questions and we'll be able to respond to those questions. If you have a question, a comment, by show of hand, then the microphone will come to you. We can start with him, and then next to him, and then the gentleman here.
Okay. Good morning. Yeah, my name is Francis. CEO Reef Limited. Mine was more of a concern. Recently, there was a time where we had, it was more or less like an entire countrywide power blackout. And this kind of a blackout that really affected most of our areas where the likes of airport, commuter services, units and stuff. And it really took quite some time. And from what we saw, it was unnoticed power blackout, which really affected even the industry players and stuff. So how do you handle this as a regulatory body to come up with the, prior notices so that then we don't have, you see, if you're running an industry where you're dealing with production, for example, and you experience a scenario where now there's no power and it even affects your production. What is your take on this? Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman in the next table.
Thank you for that kind of nice presentation. But I have issue, especially when it comes to licensing of suppliers, and especially in Regulation 18. Oh, sorry, my name is Caleb Ngala, founder of Light of Hope Away from Home, which is a community-based organization, working in Madare, Kibra, and Dandora. Those are our areas of work. I have an issue when it comes to, actually we have wrote a memorandum, which we'll share in your email. Once you share it as a CBO, we have wrote a memorandum on it. There is this Regulation 18. That fine, I think, is not fair, especially for the suppliers. Something needs to be done. We did our review as community members and we'll share our memorandum. Then there is this issue of timeline of hearing either a case that has been maybe tabled with the consumer. There is no timeline that has been written in that regulations. If you take a look of regulation about Regulation 20, there is no timeline for compensation. There is no timeline for hearing of the case as far as EBRA is concerned and that chain of case is concerned. So we need also to think of, can we have a timeline? We don't want a case that will start in 2025 and maybe it might end in 2038. That might not be fair and it might be a justice delayed. And of course, it all automatically falls in justice denied to the person who has been affected. Last but not least, we are looking about 3 documents today. So each and every document, the person who is doing presentation should be telling us. For those who doesn't know, but on my side I know, and we have wrote a memorandum on different cases on those documents. So the person who is doing a presentation should be telling us which document is he or she dealing with or doing a presentation on. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman here.
Thank you. I'm Andrew Bogi from Bunge la Wazalendo. Now I present the ordinary person. Me, I'm an engineer by training. 50 years working worldwide. Now, Kenya Power is a monopoly. And the way you people are representing it, you are favoring that monopoly. Because when it rains, for example, I interrupted that man there. When it rains means there is no electricity. That should not be the case. Because we worked in New York, there is all the time snow falling, but the electricity does not go. Why here? When you check the lines, these people, their workmanship is poor, 1. 2, their poles are rotting. Thank you.
Thank you. Well taken. There was a hand over there. We can respond to those ones first, then we can do another round.
Okay, thanks a lot. Some of the people, they deal with perishables for export, like fish, and they have signed the contract. And maybe the outages can come without even a notice, or they can take long. So in the case of that issue, can I sue for compensation of the loss in the case I incur the loss?
Thank you.
Hi. I kindly wish to know more about the last mile connectivity, the last mile power connectivity, and how I can get it connected in my piece of land. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can take those ones. Do we have any others? Thank you. I think we can take those ones. Then we can break for tea and come back for the next session. But if you still have questions about this regulation, you can still note it down and raise it during the main plenary when the other two presentations are finished. I would like to recap the questions that have been raised for purposes of clarity. We have a question on how EPRA handles blackouts with Kenya Power. There was another question on regulation number 18. The fine there, it's been raised as being stringent. Maybe the person who answers this will be able to tell us the procedure that we took when we arrived at that fine. There is an issue of timelines for compensations. There's a request to have these timelines well spelled out. There is also an issue of timelines for hearing of consumer licensing disputes. There was a question from Bunge la Wazalendo, again on Kenya Pipeline as a monopoly. This is a question that we have handled from Mombasa, Nakuru, Eldoret, and all these other places that we went to. We'll still speak to it. And then there was an issue of if one can sue Kenya Power in the case of losses. And then lastly was about last mile connectivity, and there was a lady there who was asking on how to bring power to her land or premises. At this point, I'd like to ask Engineer Dr. Okech to come forth and guide us on how to respond to those questions raised. Dr.
Thank you, Immaculate, and thank you all, and thank you for those good questions and comments. I think I'll try to take a few, and also maybe let Engineer Smee have a microphone. Engineer Smee will react to the Regulation 18 about the fines, and then Regulation 20 about the timelines. Then I'll pick the rest. So, Engineer Smee, you have the microphone and do it after me. The first one is about blackouts. Okay, like the blackouts which are national and they take long, that one I must say we are sorry about it, but you find that these blackouts occur due to unavoidable circumstances. Like I think the longest one we had was the one which took 19 hours. It was a very unprecedented incident which occurred in the system. We had an overvoltage in the system, which later on made Electrocana power plant that day come off, and they were carrying a very big portion of the generation capacity then, And this then was followed by a trip on our interconnector with Ethiopia and led to cascaded loss of the old grid. Some of these blackouts, actually, I can tell you, the engineers, we call them, we have the National Control Center. And the engineers at the National Control Center who work 24 hours every day throughout the year. They work in shift and they monitor the balance between the supply and demand at any point. So, like such as an occurrence could not be avoided. We have what's called automatic generation control, which now we are trying to put in the system to try to improve the speed of action, because sometimes human intervention is a bit slower. So the only thing we can do, we are going to improve as a country and bring what's called the automatic generation control, and also work on our frequency load shedding module, where we have that maybe some part of the system can be shed off when there's maybe a mismatch between the generation and the supply, so that we don't lose the old grid. But why does it take long to bring back a grid? Sometimes when you lose the old grid, we do what's called a black start, starting maybe all the machines now without generation, without load, and it takes a bit of time. We have also relied on our neighbor from the West, Uganda, to jumpstart us when their grid remains on, when ours go off. We are now connected with our neighbor to the South Tanzania. So we are making some improvement. But in such cases, then we find that it's very difficult to blame one entity for such kind of an outage. I remember as the regulator, we were even called by Parliament. We made a presentation and we told Parliament that situation couldn't have been avoided because it was something unprecedented. It was an accident which occurred in the system. So in such kind of incidences or accidents in the system, it is very difficult to compensate because nobody was liable for it. A risk can only be borne by somebody who could have taken care of it and didn't do it. So in such a case, nobody was liable for that risk, and we made a determination. But what we do as a regulator, we are the ones who can investigate and determine whether nobody was liable. Should you have an investigation and found maybe Electrocana was liable or Kenya Power, then you could have held them responsible. And then if there any compensation, they should have done that compensation. My engineering friend, my senior, who is 50 years in practice, I appreciate your time and maybe that long time of practice. I've only done 33, so you are much my senior. Your comment is valid. In some jurisdictions, like you go to some other countries like Japan, those developed countries may find that even if it rains, it snows, we don't have blackouts. But in Kenya, we have the blackouts. First, because of investments. I think to have what he knows, because if you're a local engineer, there's something called redundancies of lines where you can take off lines and maintain them without even switching people off. We need what's called redundancy. Means we must have alternative lines of supply. So that means even Kenya Power, if they are doing any kind of maintenance, they don't need to put you off. Those redundancies require a lot of investment. And as a country, you know, even in our road networks, even our other infrastructure, we have not reached there. And if you do those investments, then that money must come from us as the consumers. Because like Kenya Power Lighting, their tariff is regulated and controlled by EPRA, who are us. So every year, you do the tariff review in 3 years. So after 3 years, we look at the revenue requirement. That means how much money will they require to buy power from all the generators, how much money will they require to do the transmission network improvements, distribution network. Then we come with what's called total revenue requirements. That's how your tariff is determined. So assuming we wanted to make a very big change to be like those developed countries, then we'll have a lot of money to make those investments, and that will make the tariffs very high. But we are doing improvement in a phased way. We know where we are as a country. We know that some things we cannot do them overnight, but you must do it slowly. So hiyo ndio tukubaliana hata kama wananchi, kila kitu tufanye phased way. So let's cut the suit which fits us. But okay, weka ile kubwa sana, hatutatoshea. So that's what I can tell my colleague, but I'm here, we can have a chat with you. About the compensation for losses, yes. That's why we are talked about. We even talked about Kenya Power Lighting and other utilities taking insurance. covers for where, if they are liable, then those claims should be used to compensate customers who are affected. So long as the compensation is determined that that entity, be it Kenya Power, they are liable. Risk can only be borne by somebody who is liable. So I think Engineer Smith made a statement, although he made it jokingly, people didn't take him seriously. Assuming a lorry now hits a line and power falls, maybe now power goes off. In that case, it is not possible to hold Kenya Power Lighting responsible. They're only responsible for now restoring the power. And that's when we come in. We say, how long did they restore the power? So if they restore it, maybe unless it's too long, then you can hold them responsible. But for maybe that pole coming down and you losing power, it will be very unfair. Likewise, to maybe if there's a storm, assuming now the way it rains, and we know maybe it's a big rain and then power lines fall down, in such cases, we call them force majeure. We cannot maybe hold them liable. But now they are liable for restoration. And that's why they were there as a regulator. We'll see how long did they take, what was the intensity of that maybe fault, and how long did they take to restore it. Last mile connectivity, please, this is being done by Kenya Power Lighting, but the person who asked it, maybe we have a chat with you over break. Thank you. Engineer Smith, do the two, and then we go for break.
Hello. Yeah, there was, I think I'm handling questions by Caleb Ngala. You're saying you've already developed a memorandum. Okay. So, Banangala, ulisema you have already done a memorandum which you will give us, huh? Those figures we have proposed there, we went through with our key stakeholders, and our current key stakeholders are Kenya Power, Ketraco, Kengen, REREC, even the Minister of Energy. So, these key stakeholders already agreed to we had a consensus on those rates, but why we have come to the public is we want to get your feeling on some of those provisions. So we are glad that you already have crafted something you want to give us. We will actually go through your proposals and compare with what we have, and maybe see where we converge. If you are making a proposal that we think is good for the sector, we'll be able to incorporate. So we very much appreciate for your input which you are expecting. On compensation timelines, I think the regulation is very clear. It has saying you make a complaint within, you notify the licensee within 30 days after the occurrence of the incident. But you should make your complaint in writing within 12 months. So if after 1 month you have not notified the licensee, then it means that that claim has been vacated. It is invalid. But you have up to 1 year to make that claim, as long as you have notified. Then we have also provided that upon you submitting that complaint for compensation, the licensee has got 90 days to process your claim. It is valid. Review and make a verdict on your compensation. And I think in this compensation, if you will not agree, you will still have an avenue to complain to escalate to the regulator. So it is there. It's actually it is there. It's the regulation. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. About printing copies and giving you, we have gone digital. And we must agree as a country we are going digital. So even as we are reducing our operational costs. So they are on our website. Even today, if you just go to our website, yeah, so they are there. So if you ask us to print them, please, we also mean reducing our operational costs. So I know we are all able to go their smartphones, just go to our website, download the regulation we are discussing, go through it, isn't it? But if I'm to come and print and give everybody, that's a waste, and we don't want to waste your money. You know, the money you're using is your public money, isn't it? Thank you. I think maybe Michael, let's break for tea and come for that.
Thank you. Yes, we break for tea. Tea is served right behind us. It is now, it is now 11:35. We come back at 11:55. Then we go through the other two regulations and thereafter plenary. Thank you. Karibuni chai.
The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. EPRA is established under the Energy Act 2019 and regulates electrical power, renewable energy, and petroleum subsectors. EPRA's expanded mandate includes the regulation of upstream petroleum and coal. EPRA protects the interests of energy consumers and ensures that all players in the energy sector adhere to set business practices. We are here to facilitate access to sustainable energy for all. EPRA, quality energy, quality life. The Energy Regulatory Commission is now the
Go to the next session. As you can see from our program, we are running behind time because we ought to have done system operation regulations before going for tea. But let's see how we are going to recoup some of the lost time. So we want to go straight away to the presentation on the draft energy system operations regulations. And at this point, I want to call upon my colleague,
It's not sense. Amaipitie iko sawa. Good to go. Good morning once again. I'll go straight to the presentation. My name is Kiprotich B. I work in EPRA under the Electricity and Renewable Energy Directorate. So the regulations I'm going to present are titled Energy, in bracket, System Operations Regulations 2025. And before going into the regulations, I could just give an overview of why we saw it necessary to develop these regulations. Then the summary of these regulations is that we are seeking to establish an entity called the system operator. So the system operator will be a regulated entity with a license from EPRA. And the key role of the system operator will be to perform round-the-clock operations on the system to ensure that consumers have supply as and when they need it. So currently, when you see the lights are on, then obviously there's a system operator working behind the scenes, but that function is not embedded in law. So the reason we are coming up with these regulations is to embed that key function of the system operations in law. Okay, so okay, so the outline of my presentation is shown there on the screen. Why we are here today, I think, was presented in the morning session. The regulation making process, again, was presented in the morning session. The high-level objective of the regulations, that is where I'm going to start. Why we need a system operator, Then we go to the content of the system operation regulations, and we'll have an highlight of the players who will be affected most by the system operation regulations. So what are these regulations about? Is that the regulations set the rules for operating the entire electricity grid value chain from generation all the way to electricity consumption. And secondly is that the Energy Act of 2019 gives power to the authority to designate a system operator. And the key function of the system operator is to match the electricity supply and demand. The unique attribute of electricity is that whatever you generate must be guided by what is being demanded. Currently, storage of electricity at large scale is not economically feasible, and that's why we need a system operator to be able to match whatever is demanded and guide on who is to provide that demand, or who is to provide that supply to meet the demand. Then there is an image there on your screen which shows how the electricity is generated and supplied. The key thing here is that demand must be equal to supply. And we have a guiding frequency in Kenya, which is 50 hertz. If the demand is exactly equals to supply, that frequency will be 50. The system operator, one of the key functions will be to monitor that frequency to ensure that it's within a certain narrow bandwidth, because outside that range, there's a risk of losing the entire grid. Then the grid is an interconnected system and it's complex, and a problem on one part of the grid may affect the entire system. Like the blackouts that were highlighted in the morning, you find that there's an epicenter. That is the source of the blackout, but within a fraction of some few minutes or seconds at times, everybody is without supply. So this again emphasizes the role of a system operator as somebody who will be ensuring that we have supply around the clock. Then another attribute of electricity is that it has some characteristics of natural monopolies. Like in transmission, we cannot have many people operating transmission lines within the same geographical area. So that is why we come in as a regulator. Now that we know, because of the attributes of electricity, you'll only have one transmitter within a geographical area. That's why we come as a regulator to regulate these, what we can call monopoly, to ensure that they offer reliable and quality services to the users. Then, if you look at how our grid has been evolving, before the year 2000, we used to have one main player who was Kenya Power. Kenya Power used to operate generation plants. They also used to operate transmission and distribution. But there has been continual unbundling process in the sector to try and improve efficiency. Like now we have many generators. KenGen is the main player, of course, in that space. But we also have independent power producers who are private companies who come in to fill in the gap that KenGen is not able to fill. Then in transmission, we have Ketraco, which was formed around 2007. Then in distribution, we have Kenya Power and also a number of other distributors in the country, but smaller ones, of course. So before the 2000, the issue of coordinating these players was not a big challenge. So system operations, again, was done by Kenya Power, who had the visibility of all their network. But right now, we need somebody who may not be Kenya Power, and he needs to have a visibility of the entire generation system. And that role can be filled by the system operator. Again, we have other emerging issues like variable renewable energy, VREs, in this case solar and wind. These are non-dispatchable generation. You cannot tell when the wind will blow or how fast the wind will be blowing. You may not tell with 100% accuracy when the cloud will be there. And these two technologies currently generate a significant portion of the electricity that we currently consume. So one of the key roles of the system operator will be to ensure when, let's say, when the wind is not available, then who fills in the gap that was left by wind. Because if you look at our dispatch regime, it's like you prioritize the sources that are cheap, and some of these renewable energies like wind and solar, you find them that are cheaper than other sources like thermal or even geothermal. Then on the demand side, we have other emerging issues like electric vehicles. So we need a system operator to be able to ensure that supply is always available when required. On our screens, we have a typical weekly load curve. You'll notice that the demand varies from time to time, with the lowest demand being recorded at around 3-4 a.m. in the morning, and the peak demand being recorded at around 7:30 to 8 p.m. thereabouts. So the demand, again, we said it's guided by, you may not predict demand to 100% accuracy, but that demand must be met. So the system operator is there to ensure that he avails the right amount of generation to be able to meet this varying demand. Then again, the image, there's a pie chart over there, and it shows the contribution for wind for this week. This was the week of 27th October 2024. Wind contributed 16% of the entire generation, and solar was 3.55%. So together they contributed around 20%, which is quite significant. And this again overemphasizes the role of a system operator. Then, as we've mentioned, before the year 2000, there was one key player in the sector, who was Kenya Power. After 2000, there has been continual reforms in the sector that brought in IPPs at the generation level. We've not yet gotten to the time where we have an wholesale market. If you look at the figure there, the IPPs ideally should sell to a wholesale market. Then the wholesale market sells to distribution system operators. Then distribution system operators sell to retailers, who again can be a number. So in short, we are saying these reforms that have been happening in the sector have been quite a lot, and we need somebody at the center stage to coordinate all these players. And that role will be performed by the system operator. So next, I'll go into the substantive provisions in the regulations. The draft regulations has 13 substantive parts and 47 regulations. So it has 13 parts, then 47 regulations, and 2 schedules. Regulation 2 is on definitions. Regulation 3 is on the parties that these regulations will apply to, and at the center stage again is the system operator and licensees, as well as other users. Then the purpose of the regulations is to ensure efficient, safe, reliable, and coordinated system operations of the Kenya National Transmission System and the interconnected system. So here we are talking about, when we say the Kenya National Transmission System, we are talking about the local grid within the boundaries of Kenya. An interconnected system will be the system that interconnects us with our neighbors. Like currently we are interconnected to Ethiopia at high voltage, Tanzania at high voltage, and also Uganda. So one of the main roles of the system operator will be to coordinate the regional exchange of power between us and our neighbors. Then Regulation 5 is on the power that the Energy Act bestowed on EPRA to be able to designate a system operator. and it proposes that the system operator be issued with a 20-year license, and again 20-year license, yes, but regulated by EPRA. So they'll be issued with an instrument, in this case a license, and the license will have conditions. One of the conditions of the license should be for the system operator to be able to ensure they play that role of matching demand and supply effectively. And if they are not able to do that, then the EPRA under Regulation 7 may suspend or revoke the license of a system operator and appoint a party to play that role of system operations. Regulation 6 again defines the functions of the system operator. Key number 1 function is matching of demand and supply. Then Regulation 8 is on the grid code, which again came up in the morning. The sector has a document called the grid code that guides on the roles of parties who intend to interconnect to the system. You know, when we talk about grid, it's one system, like the national grid. If you look at the frequency, if you are to have monitors to check the frequency, it's a global issue. The frequency here in Nairobi will be the same as the frequency in Lodwar, if Lodwar was to be interconnected to the grid. So the grid code defines all those parameters that needs to be met by the grid and the role of the key players within the grid code. Then Regulation 9 is on the physical infrastructure and personnel or staff that the system operator needs to have in place for him to be able to perform that functions effectively. On the physical infrastructure, there is an emphasis on the main and backup control centers. The system operator is somebody who sits in front of a computer and ensure they monitor all the flows from generators, flows from the key lines, to ensure that you get supply at your home. So they need to have a physical office where they'll be running the operations from. Then again, they need to have a backup control center. In case maybe they are not able to access that, that main office, that function needs to be performed elsewhere. So there's a requirement that you need to have a main control center and a backup control center. Then secondly, you need to maintain qualified staff who in the context of these regulations are called operators to be able to perform that function of system operations. So if again you look at the regulations, it says the operators who are now human beings, they need to be licensed by EPRA. So EPRA will have the role of licensing the company that will be assigned to do system operations. And below the company can only hire operators who are licensed by EPRA. That is for the function of operations. Of course, the system operator may have other non-core functions, and the personnel doing that can be employed based on the existing structure. But you are saying for the operators will be performing the key role, they need to be licensed by EPRA. Then Regulation 10 is on the communication system. Again, this is a Regulation 9 was on the requirement for infrastructure, the office and personnel. Then Regulation 10 gives the requirement of the hardware that the system operator needs to have in place for them to be able to discharge that function of system operations. One example that is listed under that regulation is the requirement of telecommunication network called SCADA. They need to have a system, SCADA or equivalent, to be able to perform that function. Regulation number 11 is on financial and organizational matters. The staff complement of the system operator needs to be approved by the authority. We say that the system operator is a regulated agency charged with the key function of performing that system operation. So we are saying for the satisfaction of the EPRA now, who will be issuing the license, the system operator needs to to present to us the staff complement that they intend to use for satisfaction that with the staff complement, they'll be able to discharge that function effectively. Then regulation number 12 is on the data and information sharing between the system operator and the key users. It says users shall provide the system operator with the necessary data and information for purposes of efficient, safe, reliable, and coordinated operations of the Kenya National Transmission System. So the summary here is for you to operate a system, then you'll need to have access to information. And this information, the key providers of this information will be the key players within that regulation. Could be the generators, the transmitter, distributor. So this information and the timelines for provision of this information to the system operator is defined under regulation number 12. Then regulation number 13 to 15 gives the plans that the system operator needs to have in place. So in regulation 12, there was the data requirement that the players need to provide to the system operator. In 13 to 15, after they receive, the system operator receives this information, then they need to have 3 plans. Number 1 plan is the annual generation and operation plan. Secondly, weekly generation and operation plan. And thirdly, the daily operation and daily generation and operation plan. So you are saying the timelines again are defined, like for the annual plan, the users of the system needs to submit data to the system operator at least 90 days before the start of a calendar year. So right now we are in 2025. The system operator needs to have presented to the authority or to EPRA an annual plan on how they intend to operate the system from 1st of January 2025 to 31st December 2025. And for him to prepare this plan, he needs to receive information from the generators, from transmitters, and from the distributors, who in this context are called key players within the regulation. That data needs to be given to the system operator at least 90 days before the start of the year. So that should be, is it September of 2024. Then more granularly, the system operator needs to also have a weekly operation plan of how they intend to operate the system in the upcoming week. And the timelines for the data, again, are shown in that regulation 13 to 15. Then closer to the operational hour, the system operator needs to have a daily system operation plan. That is a projection of how they intend to run the grid the following day. And that plan needs to be prepared a day before the operational day. Then regulation number 16 is on the power system protection. It says the user shall develop the power system protection schemes and submit to the system operator for concurrence. So if you read through the regulations, it emphasizes the need of coordination between the system operator and the key players. So once they agree on a protocol, a communication or operation protocol, then that protocol needs to be filed with EPRA for record and also for reference in case there's a dispute between these key users. Then regulation number 17 is on the communication between the system operator and the users. Again, for the system operator to be able to run the grid, they'll need to exchange, data exchange between the system operator and the users needs to be frequent, and that is guided under regulation number 17. The documents that they need to exchange and the communication protocol between the users. Then regulation number 18 is that once the system operator and the key players in the who are affected by the regulations agree on how they intend to be sharing information, timelines, and all that. Then they need to document that agreement in what we are calling the Memoranda of System Operations. That Memoranda of System Operations needs to be submitted to the authority, again for record and for reference in case there is a dispute between the parties. Then Regulation 19 is further emphasis on the role of the system operator, and it says the system operator will be charged with developing procedures for maintaining operational security of the grid in consultation with the users. The authority needs to approve these procedures. Then there is another key function. We said the system operation is a full-time job. The system operator needs to be on the job 24 hours a day, 365 days in a year. So in the regulation, that is recognized as real-time monitoring and operation of the grid. Then regulation number 20 is on the operational security limits. It gives emphasis on the fact that the system operator needs to conduct periodic studies to ensure that they have an understanding of the grid they operate, and propose ways of mitigating any foreseen risk that may occur as a result of operating the grid. Regulation number 21 talks about critical infrastructure protection. The system operator shall develop a security plan containing a risk assessment of its infrastructure covering major physical and cyber threats, scenarios in line with the grid code, and any directions from the authority. So again, this is we say the system operator is the guy who ensures that we have supply as and when we need. So he needs to have a contingency plan in case maybe I could give an example. Maybe you've planned to run your grid with electricity generated from Olkaria, and for one reason or the other you cannot be able to evacuate that grid to Nairobi. Then the system operator needs to have a plan of ensuring that Nairobi, which is the key load center in Kenya, is supplied by electricity despite the fact that you cannot get that electricity from Olkaria. Then regulation number 23 is on demand control. This is also demand control here refers to situations whereby the system operator may be forced to cut off some customers, maybe when the operation of the grid is at risk. We said the key guiding principle is to ensure that demand is equal to supply. But at times, maybe you have constraints from the supply side. Let's say the demand was 200 megawatts, but you can only get 100 megawatts. In that case, the most feasible thing to do if you are a system operator is to shed off an equivalent number of customers. But regulation number 23 gives the guiding rules. One key thing is that the system operator needs to have a procedure, so they cannot haphazardly cut off customers. They need to have a procedure on how they intend to carry out demand control, and that procedure needs to be approved by the authority. Then regulation number 25 to 30 gives talks about scheduling and dispatch of energy and ancillary services in the grid. And again, it gives emphasis that the key role of the system operator is to perform real-time functions to ensure that consumers get supply within the right parameters. Then regulation number 31 to 33 are on the reporting requirements. On the system operator, we say that the system operator is a regulated entity. They'll be having a license issued by EPRA. As one of the conditions of the licenses, or under these regulations, they need to be submitting daily, annual, and incident reports to EPRA. Daily reports, of course, will be to a document of how they operated the grid on the previous day. Then annual reports will be a written document on how they operated the grid on the previous calendar year. Then incident reporting, we said in case there is a major disturbance in the system, then the grid operator needs to document the cause of that incident and the mitigation measures, and the same report needs to be submitted to EPRA within 24 hours after occurrence of that major incident. The regulation 35 to 44 are on the general provisions of the regulations. So anything that we felt was important and has not been captured in any of the regulations up to this point, then is covered under regulation number 35 to 44. One of that general provisions is on handling of confidential information. By the virtue that the system operator will be at the center stage of operations within the Kenyan grid, they'll have access to so much information. And in Kenya, we have a law that guides on handling of private information. And we are saying that the system operator will not divulge confidential information unless there is a consent from the provider of that information. Then the system operator has a duty to maintain records of all aspects of system operations as provided under the grid code. Then they'll also have a responsibility of ensuring non-discriminatory access to the grid for any user. There's another regulation that is currently under development called open access. The spirit of operations in the Kenyan grid is to allow what is called open access. So, for example, if I have a power plant here in Nairobi, and I have my load center is in Mombasa, I intend to ferry that power from here to Mombasa. Then it's highly unlikely that I will build my grid. I'll want to use the existing infrastructure owned by maybe Ketraco and Kenya Power in this case. So I should not be denied that opportunity to use. And the person who will enforce this requirement is the system operator. Then regulation number 45 is on the offenses and penalties under these regulations. And most of the offenses are either to the system operator or to the main users in these regulations. In this case, the generators, transmitters, or distributors of electricity. One of the offenses that I highlighted was on the failure to submit outage plans. So we say the system operation can only be effectively carried out if the system operator has access to information from these key players. So if one player fails to submit information to the system operator, then it means is likely to affect the system operator from discharging his mandate. So that licensee will have committed an offense. Then number 2 is submitting of inaccurate outage plans. That is from, again, licensees to the system operator. Then another offense that is listed there is, we said the system operator is a regulated agency with a license issued by EPRA. So EPRA, from time to time, may want to conduct audits to determine how the system operator is discharging his mandate. And some of these audits you may only conduct when you are within the premises of the system operator. So we are saying if the system operator denies access to EPRA to their premises, then that is an offense listed and there is a proposed penalty. Then regulation 46 again is on the complaints handling. Same procedure as the reliability regulations that was presented in the morning. First step, the system operator and the users try to resolve the complaint amongst themselves. If they are not able to resolve, they may escalate that complaint to EPRA. And further, after determination by EPRA, the aggrieved party may again escalate that complaint further to the Energy Tribunal. Then transitional provisions are captured under Regulations 47. And it says once these regulations are enacted, then the existing system operator will operate the system for a maximum of 2 years, upon which EPRA will issue a new designation. So if these regulations were to be passed today, then the current system operator will be allowed to operate the system for a maximum of 2 years. So they can operate up to 2027, 22nd of March 2027, upon which EPRA should have designated a new system operator. Then the key players who are affected by these regulations at the center stage is a system operator. The EPRA is also within the picture by the virtue of number one, issuing a license to the system operator and monitoring the performance of the system operator. Then the generation licensees will be in contact communication with the system operator. Also, the key players will be affected, transmission licensees and distribution licensees. Then the consumers are on this other end. There is no data requirement from the consumer side, but if this arrangement is well managed, then the consumers stand the best chance of getting reliable and quality electricity supply. That is the end of the presentation. On your screen is the QR code where you can submit the comments to these regulations. You can scan the code and enter your comments. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Can you give him an applause? So you have clapped for the presenter. Can you also clap for the listener? You know, he can't speak to himself, so it only becomes complete when both of us are here. So this juncture, I want to open the floor for a few comments, questions. Where is the mic? You say your name, the organization you are representing, alafu unaendelea. Tumeanzia kule nyuma, tutakuja tu.
Okay, my name is Francis Owino, CEO RIP Limited. I want to thank my colleague for a very intense presentation and really echoing for that. My question is in the area of, okay, I wanted to find out, as a regulatory body, rather, whether you have fully worked with KPL, Kenya Power and Lighting, in terms of making sure that all our cablings, I'm talking of the power lines that are having more kilowatts of power compared, you see, that are crossing across homes, units and stuff, whether they've been fully insulated. The reason why I'm saying this is that way back, and I believe you will all agree with me, is that we've been having incidences of, for example, cable lines that have maybe fallen on some water, maybe in a place, in the event of maybe rain and stuff, and in a place where you find out that there's a scenario where children are playing around a place. And we've even had such kind of accidents where you find out children have even died in terms of just handling those water and electrocuted and stuff. So I believe the KPNLC could are insulating most of those power cables that are cutting across cities, homes, in units. Are they fully insulated? This is my question.
Thank you. Next, pale nyuma kwanza, tukija mbele.
My name is Joshua Mutua Waema. I'm the sole proprietor, managing director of Makuene Electronics. I have a question, which I don't think it is worthy to be directed to the IPRA, but I think it is worthy. This is about Kenya Power and Lighting Company. More than often, you may find in a certain area, there is lack of electricity for almost 2 weeks. And then when the report is taken to the Kenya Power, they use the retarding by delaying, and the people continue suffering. My question is, do you have authority on Kenya Power in such circumstances? Because you find that the consumers get affected, and then this one is against consumer rights in Article 46. So do you have authority, being a regulator, to intervene in such a situation? Because you know, consumers are benefiting from the power, and then Kenya Power gets money from the consumers. So why should it be that, like in my area, Mabangoni Market and the environment, sometime 2 weeks ago, people went without power for 2 weeks. Do you have a way of intervening as far as Kenya Power is concerned? Thank you.
On the right first.
Thank you so much. As I said earlier, my name is Samuel Obiero, and I'm here in my personal capacity. I would like to comment on this document, especially on the duration of the license of the system operator. It has been suggested to be 20 years. I've got a proposal. Due to the initial capital outlay and the nature of the investment, could you provide for maybe a renewable kind of a renewal? Rather, maybe after 20 years, the system operator is allowed to renew the license. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, EPRA Directorate. My name is Odhiambo Dawa. I teach at Technical University of Kenya, formerly Kenya Polytechnic. I'm also a former student of the same place. I also teach at Strathmore University Energy Research Center. Now, mine is not a question, but a compliment. I hope you're allowing that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, EPRA has been known for all renewable energy, energy efficiency, industrial, commercial sectors. It has really revamped and our activities. As an energy auditor and a trainer in the renewable energy industry, we really take this rare, very, very rare opportunity to thank EPRA officials and the Ministry of Energy with all the stakeholders. It has made our work very easy and very convenient. There are very few court cases of energy contracts, performance, PPA, independent power production, all of that we do. There's been a legal backload. But right now with the regulations, the sharias and what EPRA is doing with other stakeholders, we really appreciate, and it makes our work very easy. Now, alongside that, also, probably it's a question now, and I know the challenges are there. We are also involved in e-mobility. Now, for those people who don't know, e-mobility is all electric vehicles. All of you, you must have come with Corona vehicles, or we call them fossil fuel vehicles. The strategy is that under Energy Act 2019, March, we have to transit from fossil fuel Corona vehicles to e-mobility. And I'm here thanking EPRA very much for making these regulations, because those are what will make all this possible and convenient to all of us. And just very briefly, we met in Strathmore University with the EPRA and Kenya Power. Kenya Power has been called many times. We had to fast track the transition from fossil fuel Corona vehicles to electric vehicles. And very soon, you'll be required to charge your vehicle through Kenya Power, through EPRA regulations, which our friends have really make it easy for us. So that is the importance of these regulations and this stakeholder meeting. We highly appreciate. Now, for EPRA, how much are you ready? We only know EPRA regulation and Kenya Power only using electricity for lighting, home residential. Right now we are talking about something new, e-mobility. How many infrastructure charging stations? Because I could be talking here with my friends to want to transition and there's nowhere they can charge. How much have you done for that? Thank you very much for the good job, EPRA, and particularly Okech. We have met in many forums. Please don't give up. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Dembo.
I'm Jamboni.
Jambo.
Oh, thank you. My name's Tabu Charles. I'm the chairman of Bunge la Zalendo. And I had just to make a concern on the regulation. Regulation 35 to 44. That is the general provision whereby, I don't know, you started when I was out a bit, but unfortunately I didn't capture your name. You have talked about the secrecy and you have talked about in details. But I wanted just to bring to your attention, when you're making this law, I think try to, I know under the what we call probably data protections, in this non-disclosure, you have to consider also the Constitution, because based in Article 40, not Article 40, but Article 35, access to information, it is a subject of concern in court. So when you come to this kind of information, and then probably have not captured or expound on it, what are the areas that you are trying not to disclose or to make it secret? Because in government, we used to be oppressed by the aspect of the Secrecy Act, which we overruled it through the new Constitution 2010. So I like your expansion on this Regulation 35. Probably I could have talked more because there was a question I had about the other one, but we concurred also with the time frame that you have given. That is but that one was before break, so it had gone by that time. So I think my senior also had communicated, Engineer Bogi is also with me here, and I know you cannot, the rules of leadership, you cannot outshine sometime you are senior, even if you are the boss. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have the last one. For the moment, we react to the questions we have so far, then maybe we'll proceed later.
Okay, thanks a lot. My name is Nick. I represent an organization known as FOCA. So my concern is about to have independent power producer. And some of them, they sell power at a very expensive, maybe something like that. I was told that they have signed a long-term agreement. So maybe for how long are they going to produce the power at that rate? Number two, about the wooden pole.
Maybe clarification on that. Which IPP are you talking about?
I think for the purposes of the privacy, maybe let me not disclose. Independent power producer, they produce energy, they sell to whatever, to Kenya.
Yeah, we have many in Kenya. So who in particular are you talking about?
Let me not disclose for now.
Okay.
But let me go for the second question.
Okay.
About the wooden poles. I think they are very risky because some of them, they are very close to the residential areas, would you maybe advising Kenya Power to replace them with a concrete one? And another one is about the nuclear energy. We had a project of the producing nuclear energy. Maybe you can shed more light about that, about the progress, and maybe what is remaining about it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So I think let's first of all react to the questions we have so far. So let me recap the questions. We had one, the first one was from Francis Sawino. You asked about if EPRA is working with the KPLC. So, yeah, I got it. Whether we are working with KPLC to have contractors, particularly in residential areas, have them insulated to mitigate the risk of electrocution. Tua Josephat asked about when you have prolonged outage, how does EPRA intervene? Samuel Bere talked about duration of the license, whether we can give provision for renewal. Good lecturer here is appreciated what we are doing, and also you know, he has shown you an example of what to do and you are laughing. Can you do what he has done? Then he's also met inquiry on EVs. We'll be able to respond to that. Charles from Bunge la Mwananchi. I don't know. Bunge la Wazalendo. Chairman. Sasa uko we ni mbunge? Ni kiongozi lakini si mbunge? Okay, sawa. Yeah, so I think sort of you have appreciated what we have done in the regulation. Yeah, so that we also take it positively. Yeah, unajua wabunge wakisema tunafanya kazi nzuri inamaanisha sheria zetu ziko tick. Haya mambo ya rotten poles hapa sorry? Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Correct.
Because when time comes for somebody to say that you need to do public participation, you will call me and say the chairman of Google on such and such a day, on 24, he participated in that public participation by saying aspect of the Article 35 of the Constitution vis-a-vis our area of secrecy act.
Thank you. I was not finished describing your area. You know, you also mentioned about Data Protection Act, which has placed a caveat on what we can reveal and what we cannot. Okay, I get you. I get you. But I think, as you can realize, in our regulation, you know, we're only saying those information which commercial in nature. You know, we also need to guard the interests of our licensees. You know, somebody, if you are doing a business, you have invested in it, and you have got rivals. So there is a way we need to sieve information which can reach your rivals. You know, just like Safaricom and other their competitors. There are informations that they are not allowed to share without their consent. We are not saying we cannot share, but we will seek maybe the consent of the licensee to share, but we'll be able to expand on that. Thank you so much. On rotten poles, I think we'll also talk about that replacement with concrete poles and also nuclear energy. I'll want to begin by asking my senior Dr. Okech to maybe help us to respond on the issue of EVs, nuclear energy, then maybe insulating conductors, particularly in residential areas. Then maybe let me answer Mtua, because I think this touches on reliability regulations. You talked about when you have prolonged outage. We have already said in that regulation, reliability of supply and the quality of services is unplanned. You'll actually be, you'll qualify to be compensated. But there are those outages that are outside the control of the licensee, which we are categorizing as force majeure and others. Those ones will be used as an exemption against the licensee. So for this, I think once we have this regulation enacted, the issues of prolonged outage without explanation, because that prolonged outage will mean they'll be paying more money. So we believe that once we have this regulation in place, the negligence by KPLC or whoever will be in charge of distribution in whatever area, it will be in their interest to make sure that they address the issue of outages. Otherwise, they will incur a lot of losses in terms of paying for the penalties. So I'll invite my senior Dr. Okech to respond to those, then maybe Protich can respond to the rest. Thank you.
Yes, thank you once again for the good interaction and the questions. I'll talk about the one which is, let me start with the poles. And also I'll tie it with the power lines which need to be insulated. I think this talks about investment. You know, like power lines, we know that Kenya Power, like you see in the CBD here, we used to have overhead lines, but now we have done all of them underground. We are doing them in a phased manner. So I'll not promise you that we'll order Kenya Power Lighting to maybe replace all insulated power lines, whatever they are, uninsulated power lines with insulated ones, because that requires money. But in areas where as the CBD grows, like even easily, we have started doing the undergrounding. So depending on the available finances and also on the available risks evaluated, we do it in a phased manner. But we'll not do it for all the estates, because that means that revenue will still go into your bills. So your bills will go high. Because when you are now doing the tariff assessment, then we need to put that revenue requirement into your bills. That also goes with I think there's a question of replacing all wooden poles with the concrete ones. The same that's why I was tying them together. We are aware, we have got a program, okay, we don't want to cause a lot of deforestation by using a lot of wooden poles, but you cannot maybe change all our poles overnight to concrete poles, because that will require a lot of revenue. And that maybe must be paid for. As I told you earlier, the rate Kenya Power Lighting you pay for Kenya Power Lighting, the bills, is determined by us. How we do it is cost reflective. There are no subsidies. If there's any money to go into that rate, then it will affect your bills and my bills as well. So I'm also very cautious about my bills going up. So let's do it in a phased manner. About the independent power producers and the cost of power, yes, I think as a country we must know how did these independent power producers come in. So before we ask, let's just go to history. That's why even us who do the engineering, we also did history. History is very important. The first independent power producers came in 1998, 1999. It was after a very bad drought. That time the country was going through structural adjustment programs. That was the last maybe Nyayo era period. And our country was being seen as a very risky place for private sector to invest. The government of Kenya plus our development partners didn't have money to do power plants. So the government now floated tenders for those people to come. Just like there was those here who are married, and when the ones who are not married, you can get the tip from me. When you are getting a lady, you can tell a lady very good stories, isn't it? You are in a box. So hata sisi kama nchi wa Kenya tuliambia our investors a lot of good stories ndio wakuja wa invest kwetu. So some of those contracts we are talking about came because of our situation then. So let's not see as if they are very bad. They came to solve a problem, and indeed they solved a problem. So let's not blame the independent power producers. Yeah, but the rates are also approved by us as the regulator, and we are also checking on them. The government has tried to open them up for discussion, but like any other sealed contractual agreement, it's very difficult to open them up, isn't it? Unless we also contravene our own laws. And also send away maybe the potential now investors again. About the nuclear energy, then allow Engineer B just prepare to come and discuss about Regulation 35 to 44 and the secrecy and the non-disclosure. Maybe anything to add, because we need to go to the next regulation. We are almost getting out of time. So about the nuclear energy, this is a program which is going on. It's being done by the Ministry of Energy and the NUPEA. But as you are aware, nuclear power is something which is quite a lot of safety codes to be met before you can implement a nuclear power. So it's something that I cannot promise you is going to come when, but there's a lot of work which has been done. But just be aware it will take long before it comes. I think with that, I think I'll end. I'll ask B, just come very fast, because we won't allow the EV. Let me talk about the EV as you come. Just come, B. Then, because of time, e-mobility, we have done a lot. Mr. Dawa, you know. We came up with the guidelines. We are now doing the draft regulations. But we're also working with Kenya Power Lighting. We are working with Kenyan. We want to roll it out. So it's something we are working on. We are aware. And I think the only thing is that we must have the infrastructure ready for EV. That's work going on. Thank
you. I'll try to respond to the issue of confidentiality. I think we all appreciate that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and any statutory instruments that are made in Kenya needs to align to the regulations. So in our development of these regulations, we are well aware of that. That is why if you look at that regulation, it gives the steps. Number one is that if you are a provider of the information, then you may want to say some information is confidential. Sidio, that is the starting point. Then once you make that proposal, that proposal is submitted to EPRA. Then we make a determination, okay, is this information confidential or not? That is the next stage. Then if EPRA is in agreement with the provider of that information, then now that information may need to be protected. But at times, most of the information you find that somebody could be saying the information is confidential, yet in the first place, maybe it's in the public domain. So there is if you look at that regulation number, number 5, but the steps are provided on how the information will be declared as either confidential or not, and what happens after that information is declared. Then there was the issue of the life of the license of the system operator. We proposed a lifetime of 20 years. Then that 20 years can be renewed. Again, it's another sub-regulation within that regulation. So if the authority is satisfied that the system operator, the designated system operator, operated the system well, then that designation may be renewed for a further term. Yes, I think that is all I can respond for now.
Okay, thank you. I think for the sake of time, let's go to the last regulation. We still have chance to give our submissions. So don't feel like umefungiwa nje, bado una nafasi. So I want us to appreciate Mr. Kiprotich P. Moja mbili. Haya, huyu already najua huwa anafanya hiyo kazi mzuri. Wacha tumappreciate mapema. 1.
Thank you, Engineer Tom, for appreciating me before I do my presentation. Hope I will receive some more appreciation after the presentation. So my name is Alutuko Sospita. I work with EPRA as a senior electricity officer. So I'm presenting a draft energy regulation, draft energy, electricity incident and accident reporting regulations 2025. So the regulation is a brief regulation, so I'm not going to take more time. And also there are no big terms for me, there are no terminologies for me to define. So that is the overview of my presentation. So there is a brief summary of the regulation development. For that I will not do it. I think the first presenter had done that, so I'm not going to repeat that. So I'm going to dwell on the draft regulation. So I'm skipping this one. So the primary purpose of this regulation is to promote safety and also to provide framework for reporting incident and accident within the electricity sector. So that is Regulation 3. Regulation 4 is on application. So basically, this regulation applies to any individual or entity involved in electricity sector. So right from the generation to retail and also to those agents who work for this licensee who deals with the generation, exportation, importation, transmission, or distribution of electricity. It also applies to the electrical contractors when they are carrying out electrical installation works at the consumer premises. Also, it applies to those individual or entity that deals with exploration and extraction of energy resources for electricity purposes, for electricity generation, and also those entities that deals with transportation, storage, handling of coal, natural gas, and petroleum product for electricity generation purposes. So you find that under Regulation 4 on this draft regulation. Regulation 5 is on general requirements. General requirement. Basically, under Regulation 5, it states that it is the responsibility of the licensee to ensure the undertakings are in compliance with the applicable standards, codes, and the regulations which are meant to guarantee safety to the customers and also to the members of the public. So that is one of the responsibility under that Regulation 5. The other one, it also the responsibility of the licensee to ensure that they put measures to safeguard the undertakings from unauthorized access, theft, and vandalism. I think that is noted as one of the causes of the electricity accident. So it is the responsibility of the licensee to safeguard their power infrastructure. Also under that Regulation 5, it requires the licensee to allocate resources for public education and awareness campaigns on safety requirement associated with the undertakings. Basically, this draft regulation is proposing a percentage of 0.5% of its turnover for public awareness and consumer education on safety. Also, under that regulation 5, it requires the licensee to develop standard operating procedure for those operations and maintain routine tasks. Those operations that are done daily by the licensee, they are required to have standard operating procedure, basically to guide their employees on how to do those works and to ensure standards are observed. There is also an aspect where consumer has been given some task here, whereby as a consumer, it is also your responsibility to ensure that once the electrical contractor has done installation on your premises, testing has been done, and also there is an aspect of periodic inspection. And I think this is highlighted more on the energy. There is a draft regulations we are yet to discuss on April. I think will come for public participation on that. That is Energy Supply Installation Work Regulations 2025. Under that draft regulations, there is an aspect of periodic inspection, whereby the consumer will be required to be conducting periodic inspections on their consumer premises, basically to enhance safety. That is under Regulation 5. I believe I'm audible. Okay, thank you. Regulation 6 is on notification of incident and accident. So this regulation requires the licensee to notify the authority within 48 hours when an incident or an accident happens. So the licensee is required to notify the authority within 48 hours. And again, in a situation where the incident or an accident happens to be an employee of the licensee, they are required to report to DOSH. For this case, I don't mean DOSH still. I mean Directorate of Occupational Health and Safety Services. And again, for instances where the incident or accident happens to the wildlife or the habitat, so these regulations requires that apart from reporting to the authority, they report to KWS or Kenya Forest Service. Also, if the incident or an accident happens to damage to the environment, probably the activities of the licensee are destroying the environment, they are also required to report to NEMA. I mean those activities that are done for basically for electricity purposes, either for power generation or transmission lines, they also need to be reported to NEMA apart from reporting to the authority. And again, in a situation where the incident or accident affects the operation or the stability of a power system, in this case, they are required to report as specified in the grid code. So, apart from reporting to the authority, they are required to report as specified in the grid code. And then mentioned, reporting is within 48 hours. So, further, that Regulation 6 requires that for accident and accidents, the licensee is required to report to the police and obtain a police notification number. Basically, the police and the police notification number is part of the reports. It's part of the, things that will be reported on the report that is submitted to the EPRA. Regulation 7 is on system for reporting of incident and accident. Basically, Regulation 7 requires the authority to have an online system whereby the members of the public or the licensee can be reporting this accident in case it happens. And also, that Regulation 7 requires the authority to have an hotline which is available 24/7 so that the members of the public are able to reach out to the authority in case they come across any incident or an accident. That is under Regulation 7. Regulation 8 is on the categories of the reportable incident and accident. Basically, it clarifies those incidents or accidents that are supposed to be reported to the authority. So there are about 4 categories here. 1 is the fatal accident, 2 is a non-fatal accident, and 3 are dangerous occurrences. So dangerous occurrences, they are listed under the second schedule of these draft regulations. and they include probably a leaning or a fallen electric pole or transmission line, poor sagging, overhead electric conductors or cables, exposed underground. So basically those situations that are termed as dangerous to the members of the public. In case you find there is a line that is leaning, so they are still under reportable occurrences, dangerous occurrences that are supposed to be reported to the authority. Again, also number 4 is environmental incident related to electricity undertaking. This one I clarified. Those activities, probably power generation. There is someone who wants to set up a power generation plant somewhere, and it leads to destruction of environment, or it affects the flora or fauna in a way. It should also be those categories of reportable incident or accident to the authority. That is under Regulation 8. Regulation 9, it defines what a fatal accident is. So basically, if a person dies or an animal dies as a result of the power undertaking related to electricity, so it is classified under fatal accident under this draft regulation. And also, if a person suffers an injury related to power undertakings activities, and within 30 days from the day of the incident, a person dies, so it is classified under Regulation 9. That is classified under that category of fatal accidents. Regulation 10 defines what an non-fatal accident is. Basically, if someone suffers an electric shock that causes permanent disability or injury of any nature, so it is classified under non-fatal. And also, if someone suffers burn injury, including scalding, which covers 10% of the whole body. And for this case, we'll rely on the medical report, which indicates the percentage of the burn. If it is 10%, it is classified under a non-fatal accident. Or if that burn causes a significant damage to the eyes, to the respiratory system, or other vital organs, so it will be classified under non-fatal accidents. And also those accidents that are related to fire that causes property damage, so it is classified under non-fatal accidents. So basically, Regulation 10 clarifies what non-fatal accident is under this draft regulation. Regulation 13 is on accident investigation and reporting. So basically, Regulation 13 requires the licensee to investigate any incident or an accident that happened under the area of jurisdiction, the operations, and submit a report to the authority within 30 days. That is one, from the date of the occurrence of the accident. And also, in case where a member of the public comes across an incident or an accident, and it has reported to the authority through either the online system that I had mentioned earlier or the hotline number that I had mentioned earlier. So the authority is required to notify the licensee within 48 hours of that incident and to request the authority to institute investigation. Also, under Regulation 13, it also requires the authority to be publishing an annual report of all incident or accidents that happens, and also with their recommendations. And that report should be published on the authority website. Apart from that, it also gives the authority powers to do their own investigation for any particular accident or any accident that probably they think they want to do their own investigation, or they are not satisfied with the report submitted by the licensee, and also to conduct follow-ups on the investigated accidents to establish whether the status or the recommendation proposed by the authority are being considered by the licensee. So basically that is covered under Regulation 13, that is accident, investigation and reporting. Regulation 14 is on records of incident and accidents. So basically, Regulation 14 requires the licensee to maintain a register of all incident and accidents, and also that register need to be maintained for at least 5 years, or from the date or until that incident or an accident is resolved. Probably a compensation has been done and the parties are satisfied. So that is under Regulation 14. Regulation 15 is on designation of a responsible person. Basically, this regulation requires a licensee to designate a competent person who shall be responsible for coordination and also for promotion of those safety programs I mentioned, public awareness. So Regulation 13 requests the licensee to have designated a competent person, and that competent person is the one is called a responsible person, who will be doing coordination and promotion of the safety programs. Apart from that, the responsibility of this competent, responsible person shall be to notify the authority on incident and accidents, and also to institute investigation into incident or an accident, and submit reports on incident and accident to the authority, and to keep and maintain a register of all incident and accident. Basically, that is Regulation 15. It requires the licensee to have a competent person, and this competent person is the one is called a responsible person. Regulation 16 is on establishment and membership of Electricity Sector Safety Committee. So Regulation 16 requires the authority to establish Electricity Sector Safety Committee, and the purposes of this committee is to assist the authority in ensuring there is safety in the electricity sector. And this committee shall be composed of at least 13 members, of not more than 13 members, and those members should include a representation from DOSH, from NEMA, and consumers through the Consumers Association. And also at least 4 members of this committee shall come from the licensee in the electricity sector. So this committee will be providing recommendation to the authority on the aspect of safety, and the authority can consider those recommendations so that to enhance safety in the electricity sector. That is under Regulation 16. Regulation 17 is on insurance cover. So basically this regulation requires the licensee to have an insurance cover for any liabilities incurred in the course of the undertakings. And also it requires the licensee to publish the standard procedure for raising claims on their website. Basically this regulation, it gives the authority the powers to inspect the licensee. It gives the authority the powers to inspect the licensee to ensure they are in compliance with this draft regulation, and also in accordance with provision of Section 11 of the Energy Act. So that is Regulation 8. Basically, the authority will be conducting inspection on the licensee to see that they are in compliance with this draft regulation. That is Regulation 18. Regulation 19 is on offenses and penalties. So you find that all of these offenses are towards the licensees, and basically they are on reporting. So for example, number 1 is failure to report an incident or accident within the prescribed timelines. There is a fine or a penalty to that. Failure to report an incident or an accident, there is a fine and penalty for that. Failure to keep records. So all of these are leaning towards the licensee and on their requirement to report these incidents, and also to comply to this draft regulation. That is Regulation 19. Regulation 20 is on general penalties. So it covers those penalties that are not mentioned under Regulation 19, those offenses. So those offenses that are not mentioned under Regulation 19 are covered under Regulation 20. And also it gives fines to those offenses. And also another very important thing, it indicates that if a licensee commits a similar offense twice, the fine payable shall be 2 times the amount. So it's also very important. If those licensees who are repeating, those who like repeating the offense, they will be charged twice. If they repeat the same offense, they will be charged twice. That is, you'll find it under Regulation 20. Regulation 22 is on handling of complaints and disputes. Basically, this regulation, it indicates that in case of any complaints or dispute under this regulation, they are referring it to the Energy Complaint and Dispute Resolution Regulations 2012, which clarifies on how disputes and complaints are handled. Regulation 23 is on appeals. So in case you are not satisfied with how your complaint or your dispute has been handled, so it gives you an option to go to lodge your appeal to the Energy and Petroleum Tribunal. That is under Regulation 23 appeals. And that is the end of my presentation. I think I also deserve another appreciation. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you, Engineer Lotuko, for blowing your own trumpet. Aha, sasa masa yetu imekaa namna gani? Yeah, so wacha tupate a few questions and comments, alafu tukuwe na way forward, vote of thanks, alafu twende lunch. Microphone. Where's the microphone? Tuanzie huku. Huku hakuna mwenye amebeba? Hakuna. Hiyo peke yake?
Thank you so much for that presentation. My name is Brenda Chepto from Tatu City. I just have one question. During the presentation, there was something mentioned about organizations setting aside 0.5% of their annual turnover towards public education and engagement. My question is, what was the rationale for the 0.5%? And possibly a comment to consider a reduction of that or some other scale, considering that 0.5% for certain entities might be quite a huge amount. So just the rationale and then that comment that perhaps that figure should be considered otherwise. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Tukuja hapa. Na how come wale wameuliza tu ile maswali ya before ndio wanaendelea kubeba mikono? Okay, tuendelee, Prof.
Yep, thank you. Thank you very much once again. Mine actually is more of compliments again, and probably related with the question. I forgot to mention that I'm a board member of Kenya Renewable Energy Association. This is a professional body based at Stanford University, and we represent renewable energy in Kenya Parliament. In Kenya Parliament, there is Energy Committee and the Environment Committee. So we need your support, all of you. And EPRA, of course, they give us a lot of support. Without them, actually, we cannot reach that scale. Now, This one will deal with all types of renewable energy. Solar, biogas, there are about 20 areas. And one of them is biogas. As an energy auditor, we have been auditing factories, hotels, and hotels are using waste from the hotel to generate electricity. That is biogas. And now, to touch a bit about on EV, they're charging their own vehicles, fleet vehicles. So these are just new areas. Now, what I wanted to know, what percentage does biogas contribute to the grid? Because that is really worrying. Farmers in Trans Nzoia, where there's a lot of farming, one farmer can have even 1,000 cows, and waste from cows can be used to generate electricity. And therefore, they use their tractors to plow without using necessarily Kenya power and cutting down the bill as per the Kenya Energy Bill of 2019. So I wanted to know from EPRA, what percentage we want to strengthen that part of biogas, biomass, and biofuel? Just briefly. Thank you very much. Okay. And there's a lot of job opportunities for young people. Please, we want to create more jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just a small concern. Sorry, just a small concern. Okay, okay. I think I've touched so much on safety. I wanted also to understand the quality of transformers, because if you look at incidents of transformer explosions, these are incidents that are really been very disturbing. So how is IPRA doing in terms of safety, looking at KPNL procurement on transformers, so that we then see how to curb the aspect of transformer explosions?
Thank you, Mana. Francis?
Mine is in regulation, and I believe if you are giving your comment, you should be mentioning the regulation for us to understand what you're talking about. So mine is on Regulation 8. Regulation 8 is specified the category of issues that needs to be reported. But it's like we are talking about something that has already happened. What about the ones that are about to happen, but as jafanyika? We are allowed to do such kind of report, like report to the authority that there is something that is about to happen, is danger to the school, community, can you take action? Or we wait for something to happen so that we can report. So if you take a look of the categories, there is no precaution area, but there is after something has happened. Then another, we have a regulation, I'll go to Regulation 16. The rest will be found in our memorandum that you have wrote. I think we only tackled 2 documents. So in identifying the committees, sectoral committees, something is still missing, the academic level of these people. Can we have a specific academic level for these committee members, so that we don't just elect people who will be saying yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, while the common consumer is struggling and is even paying a lot of debt kwa zile vitu haja consume. I rest my case.
Thank you. Na hata kama umesema jina yako, unarudia kusema jina kwa sababu microphone pia imerudia kwako. So you repeat.
Thank you, sir, for reminding me to repeat my name. My name is Tabu Charles, Chairman Bunge la Wazalendo. I have a reaction on Regulation 5, even though my sister at the other side mentioned it, and I requested for an increment of 0.5% to something like a percentage to 5% or 10%, something good. Again, I have a reaction also on Regulation 16 on the safety. Members of the committee, whereby you elaborated NEMA, consumer, DOSH, blah, blah, blah. But I've come to realize the civil society representation is not even in place, and yet we are also doing a good job of public participation, where we will allocate us also to get something small in terms of allowances. you need to consider as a citizen, Kenya citizen also. And again, in the same regulation 16, my friend talked about academic, which I concurred with him, in that we need to specify the professionalism and the people required in this line so that we can have people competent and with high level of integrity. Again, if I'm not wrong, also I can say, my friend, you have done a good work. I've observed the regulation from the part of it, from the beginning to the bottom. It is flowing, even though there are some areas of penalties that I need to give a reaction, because I've not seen a situation whereby a duty bearer does a mistake, what action can be taken and how much can it be compared to the common one and the other, let's say like an investor penalty compared to a duty bearer mistake, or more of a corruption or influence in any manner pertaining to her or his personal benefit. I think you should check on that area. I rest my case, my friend.
Thank you, Charles.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Francis. I'm from African Alliance for Health Research Economic Development. That's a non-governmental organization. I have two concerns. I wanted just to ask one question that, do you know the institution called National Building Code? Are you aware of it? Because it is now in the process. We need to identify every project where it is located. That's what we call the National Building Codes within the city of Nairobi. My second question, I have a concern. We have, if you go to Mata Hospital, you will find that there's let me say a petrol station called Gasfield near Mata Hospital. We have a concern, and we have done our research, and we know that one of the beneficiaries of that gas field is from EPRA. And now we are making laws here. Are we really going to follow the laws, or we are just here to waste our time? We need we need to get clarification, because sometimes we are good of making laws, Kenya especially, but we don't follow the laws, and we are the breakers here. We need to make sure that whatever we are talking here is going to be implemented, because as a civil society, I'm not here just to come here and eat and go. I'm here just to tell you the truth, because we cannot allow people to go to suffering on the ground because of the problem you are creating yourself. Because we have two institutions there. They are concerned with that gas field. Mata Hospital, St. Catherine Primary School, and the roads, the people who are passing that road. We have that concern because we have a high voltage wire from Uganda passing the area, and the gas is just near, the gas field is just near. But when we found out that the guys who are running that thing is from one of the staff from the EPRA. I don't know what we are doing here, because we are just implementing things just to please people. Thank you very much.
Just a minute. Just a minute. Let's have the last one first, then I'll give guidance next.
Okay, thank you. My name is Titus Nieno, and I would like just to make a comment on the issue of incidences. We have had, like the last year, we had the incident in Embakasi, and I would like to recommend that we have the classes of incidents. If it is transformer incidents, we classify and have compensation. Also, on the part of the 13th regulation, there are many incidences that is in precautions, and also incidences that happen on maybe LPG or industrial or commercial. So my recommendation is just we have classes of the incidents, and maybe recommendation and compensation. Okay.
Thank you, Titus. I'll only take two. Hapo nyuma na pale we close kwa sababu time imeisha. Then we answer mara moja. We still have an opportunity. Give us your memoranda, your recommendation, your comments. We'll be able to look at them and on board what we think will improve our regulations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Daniel Nyabuti. I represent Lifeline Kidney Center. My question is to you guys, especially fuel. You have seen that each month you review your fuel prices. Don't you think you are hampering a lot of business because you are not predictable in the market? Someone cannot plan smoothly within like 6 months because of transport and logistics here and there. What are you doing on that? And how can you assure that you are reliable? Someone can plan on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Last one, Pale.
My name is Patrick Kemiti from Community Environmental Network. I have two questions. One is on the fatal incidents reporting. You say this is the responsibility of, the Kenya Power and Lightning are the ones who were supposed to investigate about those kind of incidences. My question is this: do they have the capacity? Don't you think that at one point maybe the law enforcement people should be involved? I want you to clarify on that one. The other one is on prolonged outages. Now that you are imposing fines, you might find that this is becoming taxing to some people. I'll cite out Kenya Power and Lightning. Before you jump into maybe slamming fines and penalties to these people, don't you think the process you should take first is to make an inquiry to find out what's really happening? For instance, I'll give an example. If a transformer blows out, the Kenya Power and Lightning is supposed to bring in some new transformers from wherever they're coming from, either from India or such a places. But then there is an emergency. Kenya Power and Lightning is also subject to the procurement laws, which has always become an impediment, because Kenya Power and Lightning will be in a position maybe to even import these transformers in good time from the places where they are made. But then there is a question of observing the procurement laws, where people will have to go to court and then stop that kind of an. Don't you think we need to do something, maybe review some of these regulations that are maybe becoming hindrances to the services operations of a given parastatal? My question is, when do you review such a bad regulations and bring in good ones? Thank you.
Thank you, Bwana Patrick. So I think we will stop there on questions, then we get reactions. The first one from Oda was percentage of biogas, electric power that is being injected into the grid. Oh yeah. Brenda, you talked about the 5%, 0.5% of the turnover for public education and engagement. The second one was Odawa on percentage of biogas. Francis, you talked about malfunctioning of transformers and their quality or explosion. Josephat, you talked about dangers, imminent dangers, not to wait until an accident happens, then you report. Talked about Regulation 16 on the qualification of the Electricity Sector Safety Committee, which same thing was mentioned by, was it Francis of Africa Alliance? Yeah. Then we have Charles, bunge la Wasalendo. Wao nataka hiyo pesa iongezeke, si kupunguzwa. Alafu pia mnataka muwe mrepresent hapo ili mulipwe per diem. Na unajua hapa Nairobi hakuna mtu analia, hata si atulipi per diem. Okay. Francis, Africa Alliance, he talked about National Building Code. Alafu hiyo kesi unasema iko Mata Hospital, and one of EPRA staff is involved. Utatupatia details, but maybe you need to give us. Titus, umeongea mambo ya classification of incidents and how they can be compensated. Apia Regulation 13. Daniel, umeongea mambo ya kureview fuel regularly. Patrick, umeongea mambo ya fatal incident reporting. They are supposed to, KPLC are supposed to investigate. Do they have the capacity? Umeongea pia mambo ya prolonged outage. How it needs to be treated. In other words, there should be a protocol in terms of classifying these incidents which fall in the category of the ones to be compensated and those ones not to be compensated. And do you think this regulation is not good? We need to tell you when we will have a new good regulation. We didn't say this regulation is good. That's why we came to you, so that you help us to improve it. So thank you. I'll ask my colleagues to respond. Maybe I'll ask my senior, Dr. Okech, to help us respond on this 5% proposed resources to be put aside for public education and engagement. Na hii pia kesi ya Mata Hospital, kuna gas refill station hapo, kuna EPRA employee. Maybe also mention mambo ya National Building Code. Hiyo issue ya bunge la Muzalendo anataka awe kwa committee akipata DSA. Yeah, karibu engineer.
Thank you so much. I thought you were representing the building code, but anyway, I'll try my best. Let me start with the most sensitive one, the gas petrol station near Mata, where one of the staff of EPRA is involved. May I declare about that staff? But it is good that if you have such information, please, some of this give to the investigative authorities, like the EACC, isn't it? Because that's now a conflict of interest, isn't it? But I remember that the case has been investigated. You know, as we seen what was Sivo. We have a director of petroleum. I think in one of our meetings, if I can remember very well, in Pan Africa Hotel, we are given that, and it was forwarded. It was investigated by our security, and they found that those guys were rightfully there. So if you're challenging it, please go to EACC, give the information to the CID, let those people involved be dealt with. But that's not within our mandate. Like us here, although as EPRA, we did our part. According to what I'm aware, that report was given to me. The concerned director did the investigation, and they gave the petrol station a clean bill of health. So if you're challenging it, please, can we escalate it to anti-corruption and to the police, then they investigate it. Thank you. You are saying? No, it's okay. If you didn't disclose the stuff, it's okay. I wish we knew the stuff. But anyway, let him disclose to the EACC. Yeah, they can deal with it. About the 0.5% turnover, I think to us, we also relied on, we told you we did some benchmarking, isn't it? So this was informed by data. But should you feel that it is high, then write to us and give us a justification why you feel it is there. You can hear, even from among the delegates here, some wanted to go up, isn't it? And as we came with you after doing some benchmarking, we told you where we did some kind of these studies, isn't it? So, but should you feel that there's something which should be done and you feel maybe some people may not comply, that's why you are here, give us your feedback. I'll also talk about the percentage of biogas in the system from Professor Dawa. That is, we have got 2%, isn't it, for biomass? Yeah, 2%. It's very low for the country, and all those people who have got the capacity to generate from biomass, biogas, please, let them come up and apply. Our application fees are very minimal, and it does not hinder you from applying. Procurement of transformers, yeah, this one I think something is being done about it. I think about the technical specifications. It is in our interest that all the materials, even transformers coming to the country, meet our standards, and they are also durable, and they don't cause maybe accidents and incidences in our system. And there's a case there was a case of transformers we didn't meet the specification, and even as April, we are involved in that investigation. And I think Kenya Power Lighting has improved their procurement system. And I can assure you now the transformers coming in are very nice, and they are good, they meet our standards. I think the building code, yes, we work with the National Construction Authority. I don't know why Engineer Smith did not want to comment about it. He's one representatives there. But we are aware about the building code, and we are aware about the requirements being made of the safety requirements, and also working closely with the National Construction Authority. We do. And actually, our representative there is Engineer Smith. Maybe he was conflicted. That's why I didn't want to talk about it. Yeah, thank you. Then I think that's all I wanted. I was supposed to talk about, because I know I'm standing between you and your lunch. Is there any I left out, engineer? Academic. Yes, academic. Yeah, this one, professional academic. Yeah, that I agree with you totally. We don't just want people to come to committees who don't add value, who just come and don't even talk, isn't it? So we'll consider that. I think if you don't consider it, let's talk about professional academic qualification for the committee. Committee membership expansion. We don't want the committee to be very large also. If the committee is too large also, they don't become effective. Anyway, we look at that. Can you write to us that memorandum and why you feel and what kind of speciality you are bringing? Because see, for us to remove somebody, yeah, no, I like this transparency, isn't it? For you to somebody to be removed and you come in, you must give me a memorandum telling me what kind of speciality you are bringing, isn't it? Yeah. And value, yes. Then we consider it. We are open. And that's why you brought it to you. I told you your voice matter. And even from the speech for my boss, the DG said that, isn't it? So if you feel something strongly, mark a written memorandum to us, we'll consider it. Fuel prices, yeah, I think I'm the one who can talk about it. Fuel prices, actually, we do very well as a country. That our fuel pricing formula, I think so many countries have come and have adopted it. Even our neighbors, I don't want to mention them, but so many people have done it. There are only two ways. Either we leave it not controlled, where now market forces will now control the price, isn't it? But we saw some cartel-like behavior before we started controlling the fuel prices, the pump prices. So we are doing it because we want to protect the end users, the consumers, isn't it? But if somebody feels so strongly that even us, we have felt maybe at some time we allow market forces to determine the prices. But the only problem that our market now is there will be still cartel-like behavior, where they'll be hoarding. Sometimes they want prices go up, food prices, yeah. And when the prices maybe where we buy the products from goes up or goes down, they don't reflect the same. Most when they go down. When they go up, they increase. But when they go down, they have not been increasing. And that's why we came in. But it's something that we are also open to ideas, to discussions. If you have got any written submissions and some data to justify why you feel you should not control, yeah, give it to us. We'll listen. That's all from me. Thank you. And maybe let Nani come. So Peter, talk about the one for the Regulation 8. members of the committee have talked about, isn't it? Yeah, then now we can summarize.
Thank you, Daktari. I think I'm going to comment on Regulation 8. Someone asked for an accident which is about to happen, what should be done? I think that one is classified under dangerous occurrences. It mentioned there are 4 areas, and one of them I said is fatal, non-fatal, and dangerous occurrences is the third one. Dangerous occurrences are those instances that are posing danger to the public. If you see a KPLC line leaning, if you see probably a line sagging, yeah, those dangerous occurrences, you can report it to the authority through either the hotline or the online system that I had mentioned earlier under that draft regulations. So it is now, once it is reported to the authority, we can be able to reach out to the licensee and request them to pick that issue as soon as possible. On the academic level of the committee, yes, it is captured under this regulation. It's only that I never mentioned it. It indicates that that committee member should be a holder of a degree in occupational health, environment, safety engineering, physics, chemistry. That means somebody who has got background on issues of safety and at least should have at least 7 years of related work experience in the area of environment, health, and safety. So academic qualification is still covered under this draft regulation. So you still have a chance to go through the draft regulation and see whether those academic qualifications you're not satisfied. You can suggest on how we can make it better. Let me look those other areas.
There's one about the investigation by the agencies vis-a-vis the police.
Yes. For this one, one of our stakeholders had said that KPLC, they don't have the capacity. Basically, the draft regulation is proposing the licensee should have a competent person. A competent person is somebody who is knowledgeable on those areas of safety. Yeah. So it is upon now the licensee using that competent person and a team of those competent persons to do their own investigations. So once they do that investigation, they provide that report to the authority. So as authority now will be able to go through the report and see whether their recommendations they are providing are satisfactory to ensure safety to the public, or in a situation whereby the authority are not satisfied with the report, we are allowed, the draft regulation allows us to go ahead and do our own investigation on the same. Yeah? Basically, that report is submitted. That is to the authority. But there are those legal entities in the government which are especially the accidents ones, which go through the normal procedure for the accidents. So they are still, the police are still involved. Yeah? So the main reason for that report to the authority is for us to keep track of those incidents and accidents, and also to see whether the licensee is responsible in ensuring their infrastructure are safe to the public. To have classes of incident and accident and their compensation, I think we've taken note of that. And our team of the officers here, we've taken note of that comment. I think I can, engineer, if there is anything that I have left out, you can comment on that.
Thank you, Engineer Lotuko. Maybe just something about, Patrick asked about the issue of fines and penalties for prolonged outages. I think this has been covered in the reliability regulation. We have given circumstances under which penalties will apply, and also circumstances under which penalties will be exempt, and they are detailed in the reliability regulations. So at this point, I think we almost wind up our program so that we go for lunch. According to our program, I think we have already done the plenary discussions. Okay, regulations by requirements of the statutory instruments, we are supposed to review regulations every 10 years. So in other words, a regulation lifetime is 10 years. After 10 years, we are supposed to review the regulations. Or whenever we have a change in the law. For example, these regulations we are currently making, they were necessitated by the change of the Energy Act from 2006 to 2016. Huyo mwenye anasema 16, I think he came for the wrong meeting. It is 2019. Yeah, so those are circumstances under which we review regulations, either change in law or lapse of the validity period, which is ideally or roughly or around 10 years. Thank you, Banasis, for pointing out that. So I think I want us to go to the way forward, and I'll invite Dr. Okech to come and give us the way forward. I realized tangu anze kuja hapa tujampigia makofi. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you so much. I think mine is just to say thank you so much on behalf of the Director General, Mr. Daniel Kipto of EPRA. We appreciate you for being patient. We appreciate that when we have gone beyond the time, but you are still here with us. And also we appreciate you that I'm seeing some faces who have been always here anytime we engage the stakeholders. It is for our own good that we meet together and discuss the regulations because they affect us and they affect the economy. Way forward is that from now, we say that comments are still coming. You are allowed to give us your comments. Go to our website. There's a comments form there. You can go log in and give us the comments. We are receiving comments until 30th of this month, after which we'll now retreat as the technical experts, look at all your comments, because that's what Statutory Instruments Act requires. That's why we ask you, some of you who are making very weighty comments, to give us those ones in writing, so that sometimes we need to call you back maybe and discuss with you further. Then the comments must be incorporated, because even when the regulation leaves EPRA, it must go with all your comments and how we treated them. So after that, we'll now make another draft, which will now be subjected to final approval of EPRA. From there, it goes now to the Cabinet Secretary. Then the way we are told in the making process, it goes to the Attorney Generals for legal drafting, until now it goes to the House, the Parliament, to the Parliamentary Committee on Energy to discuss it. Then after that, if they are happy, it comes back to the Cabinet Secretary to now gazette it, and it gets operational. As EPRA, we are hopeful that maybe we'll do this by early next financial year. Our financial year starts in July, so maybe early next financial year, we are praying the regulation will be ready. And thank you for your comments. That's all I had, Engineer Simiyu.
Sasa we have come to the end, and when I say the end, it is the end. Najua watu wengine wakiwa kwa mkutano nasema this is the last one, lakini bado inaendelea ikiendelea. Sasa tusimame so that you are convinced ya kwamba hakuna sasa kuuliza maswali wala kungoja presentation nyingine. So I want to thank, first of all, our Maker, the only wise God, our Savior, through Jesus Christ, for having enabled us to hold this meeting. because without him we can do nothing, but with him we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. Also want to appreciate the management of the hotel for having given us this room and even met arrangements for the room to be usable to hold this session. We also want to appreciate all of you for having taken your time. I know every one of us has got their own schedules. You know, it is only EPRA employees who have been paid to come here. The rest, you have come here at your own cost. So we really want to appreciate you. And lastly, we want to also appreciate the government that it has enabled us to live in such peace, providing security. You know, if there is no security on the street, you could not have come here. Wakati wa Gen Z, tungesema ukuje hapa ungefika. Yeah, so we'll also thank the government for having given us a peaceful environment to hold such a session. So once again, thank you so much. There is a meal prepared for every one of us. So from here, we'll go and eat. I think we'll pick our meal cards as we exit. And we pray that next time we have such a session, we'll encourage you to come again. We still have some 2 regulations coming, maybe in 1.5 months' time. We should be able to have such a session again. So we'll pray as we wind up. Let's believe and pray. Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, we love you and we honor you because you've been faithful and gracious to us, enabling us even to transact today's business in this place, and we have come to a successful end. We want to thank you and to bless you. Thank you for everyone who has participated in this meeting. We thank you for the comments, the ideas, the contributions we have had, and even for the ones we will still expect to receive from our stakeholders. And we pray that these ideas that they'll give us will be constructive so that they may find even their way into these regulations to make them better to serve the energy sector and even for the larger population of this country, Kenya. We thank you as we go even to take our meals. We pray that you shall bless what you are going to partake by your word and even this prayer. We love you. Be with us even the remaining part of the day. Bless and preserve even our going and our coming in. We worship you and we thank you, our Father and our God. In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, we pray and we believe. Amen and amen and amen.